Are you searching for the best in online black radio? Then go to blacktalkradionetwork.com, helping you filter through the noise. Real talk, black talk.
RacismDaily.com, your number one source for global news reports on race, racism, and overt actions of white supremacy. From Asia to the Americas, to Europe, to Australia, to Africa, racism is not a thing of the past. It is our current reality. Be informed. Be globally informed. You should be the first to know. RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com.
Is racism hurting you? On issues of race, are you unable to speak, think, and act with clarity and confidence? Are you tired of laughing when nothing is funny, smiling when you are not happy, agreeing when you really disagree? CounterRacism.com, you can learn specific strategies and techniques to counter the behaviors of the people who practice racism in all areas of activity, using words correctly, following counter-racist logic, even counter-racist science projects designed to reveal what racism is, how it works, and how to counter it. The open source code writing format allows you to pick and choose from a variety of counter-racist suggestions so you can produce the code that works for you. Stop by CounterRacism.com today and help replace racism with justice.
That's counter-racism.com.
Do you need a one-stop shop for all of your multimedia needs? Triumphant Multimedia is a skilled team of professionals with a passion for great marketing and chic design. Our specialties include consulting, brand development, copywriting, and creative graphic design that's second to none. We also offer photography, photo retouching, videography, and video editing. At Triumphant Multimedia, our goal is to provide highly effective creative solutions built to suit any individual need or budget. Give us a call at 678-732-8067 or check us out online at trimultimedia.com.
Hi everybody, welcome. This is Justice with the C.O.W.S radio program. If you want to learn about, understand, and counter racism, white supremacy, be sure not to miss a C.O.W.S episode. We keep them jammed packed with constructive information to sharpen your use of words to help eliminate the system of racism, white supremacy, ASAP. Also, for more information on racism, white supremacy, and to invest in my counter-racist efforts, please visit my blog, justdojustice.blogspot.com.
You're just saying just buckets and buckets of words.
Do you think that's accurate, the fact that we haven't been able to establish an actual building to carry out counter-racism?
Well, it's been my observation of buildings and the history of buildings. People in the early 60s, I'm just going by what I've been told and what I haven't even seen them. But I heard that there are some buildings called the pyramids. And I heard that people talking about, nobody knows how to put together and all like that. All the people who put it together are long gone and all like, and people have been studying them for centuries and all like that. And they're sitting there. And so, logically speaking, what does that mean in a functional sense? There are buildings, the pyramids in Egypt. And I understand that people go there and they take pictures and they walk around and they look at them. And some people climb them. And some people sit and look at them. And some people drive camels past them. And other people drive touring cars pass them. Some movies are made around them. And then people go wherever they go. There are other buildings, I mean, here and there all over the world, all kinds of buildings. What is an institution? I've been trying to find that out. What exactly is an institution? Now, the compensatory definition of an institution, if you use an example, is the system, white supremacy. That's an institution. And who are the people, the keepers of the institution? Every white supremacist, everywhere they go, as individuals. As individuals. They don't have to be shoulder to shoulder, walking down a street, or huddled on a ship. You don't have to be a crowd. They carry with them the white code. I've sometimes given the example of the so-called Marine Code. Some people have said they can spot an ex-Marine. Why? Is he an institution? He says, well, yeah. He will say that, some of them. I'm a Marine. Enough said. They say, well, what does that mean? It means I'm a Marine. That's what that means. The compensatory view, given what I call the compensatory counter-racist example and also the universal example, is universal man and universal woman. They would be institutions. That's the institutions that need to be established, meaning people who can function to the max everywhere they go, not people who have to huddle. First of all, build a building, and then go and huddle shoulder to shoulder in that building, and then turn and look at each other every 5 minutes, like they can somehow gain strength from that. Well, if that was true, you can call a slave ship an institution. Because you have plenty of black people huddled together. Black people have this thing of if they're huddled together, like football players, in a huddle, that means power. That means something real out of this world is going to happen right now or within a few minutes. That's black people's idea of an institution. An institution is a person who has a brain that tells them, him or her, put me in any environment and I can function in a constructive manner to the max. That's a real institution. So what is this institution, this building? The building is the brain. Everything flows to people who build buildings, so-called institutions. That building down the street is not an institution. It's a building. It's brick and mortar. Someone came and put it together because they used logic to do that. And where did the logic come from? Came out of the brain. The white supremacists understand that. That's how just one of them can walk into an environment. On many occasions, not in all, because some are more institutionalized than others. Some of them, it just takes one of them to walk into an environment and change that whole environment. 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, ears, but they got a brain that functions differently from all the other thousands of people who are right there in that same place. That's an institution, an institutionalized brain. That's where things come from. It's issued to each individual, whatever created brains. But black people have been, quote unquote, brainwashed into thinking that an institution is some building somewhere up some mountaintop. And they cannot function unless they can climb that mountain and get to that building. The white supremacists laugh at that kind of logic and say, as long as they think like that, I'll just be in charge of all of the mortar and all the bricks and everything. And they'll never have an institution, and they'll never be able to think either, because they think that they can't think unless they are huddled somewhere in some building shoulder to shoulder, singing songs and beating drums. I'll blow them, the songs and the drums away. With just one of my muskets. The people are shallow thinkers. They don't understand that they have all of the equipment that they need right there in their heads.
Context of white supremacy. Gus T Renegade Justice in for another program to share constructive information on what racism, white supremacy is and how it works. Thank you all for tuning into the program. Today's date, Sunday, September 4th, 2011. We will be back tomorrow. The Blackout 2011 continues, and concludes tomorrow, Monday, September 5th. Pam, she will be joining us. We'll be giving out suggestions, counter-racist code for different areas of people activity, things non-white people can do to combat racist man and racist woman's codified system of terrorism worldwide. That'll be tomorrow, September 5th, program time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. The blackout ends tomorrow, but the C.O.W.S continues on Tuesday. The only thing the end of the blackout means is that white people will be returning to the C.O.W.S with a vengeance on Tuesday. Danielle L. McGuire, I forgot who recommended it, but at the dark end of the street, Black women, rape, and resistance. A new history of the civil rights movement from Rosa Parks to the rise of Black power. She will be here on Tuesday. She uses the term white supremacy more than any other author I have ever read, I think with the exception of Mr. Fuller. I mean, white supremacy pops up like 5 times on a page, just repeatedly. I've never read anyone, white or non-white, who uses the term white supremacy as much as Professor McGuire, but her book, The Ritualistic Rape of Black Females, and actually, I'll just give you the very first page when the book begins. This is the quote. I put it on my Facebook page just so you'll know what to expect when white people return to the C.O.W.S. The opening sentence of the book: sex is the principle around which the whole structure of white supremacy is organized. That'll be this Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. C.O.W.S continues. Our guest for today's program, he's been with us before. I thought we couldn't have the blackout without having him join us and share his views. A lot of folks, they really appreciated hearing from him, thought he had a lot of great ideas, thought it would be very constructive to hear from him once again. He is one of the founding members of Nubian Directions. It's a publishing company. They do a lot more. Their website is linked in the description for the program, NubianDirections.com. NubianDirections.com. He's also the author of Towards the Destruction of a Nigger Mentality. We discussed that book in detail on his previous visit to the program. You can pick up a copy. It's linked, again, the website, NubianDirections.com. Real pleasure to have him on the program. Joining us once again, our guest, Mr. C.C. Blackman. Mr. Blackman, are you with us?
Yes, I am. How are you this evening?
Intensely victimized, but I am grateful to hear from you. Very much looking forward to having you back on the program, sir.
Well, it's a real pleasure to be back.
Outstanding. before we hop into and hear more from your views, is there anything you would like to share with our listeners, folks who might not have heard the first program, might not be familiar with your work?
Well, essentially, I'm just a brother who is really concerned about the current condition of our people. I see it as something that not enough of us are paying a close attention to. And I just like to remind people that we are an important link in a chain of Africans who lived before us and experienced everything from the Mayafa to Jim Crowism and to a whole lot of stuff. And unfortunately, I think that we've been so fattened up now for the kill that we don't realize that we're in a very deplorable state because all our institutions are collapsing around us, have been in free fall for about 30, 40 years. Around the same time they were telling us we were making the most progress. We are in a very vulnerable state. But the good news is that as we become more aware of the insidious nature of white supremacy and the role we play in keeping it in power by not doing the things we need to do to organize and analyze our history so that we can move, in a better direction, especially with our children and our future in mind, I think that we can overcome a whole lot. So, my message is essentially hopeful, but I think that we have to keep our eye on what our history has been, and we have to really reflect on what's really going on beyond all of the superficial comforts that a lot of us experience that keep us from paying attention to struggle.
I agree completely. I can hear you fine. I just want to give a prompt out because I know some listeners have said sometimes they have difficulty with the volume. Just making sure I'm looking at the levels. If you can make sure you're speaking loud and clear, that would be super helpful. I want to make sure we don't miss any of the great information that you have to share with us.
Not a problem.
I want to actually start with a question from one of our UK listeners. I know for them it is a little after 1, and it looks like some of our black folks in the UK, they stayed up to hear from you, Mr. Blackman, and had sent in questions before the program even began. A question from one of our listeners in the UK. You deliberately trying to be provocative and using the term nigger in the title of your book, or did you use it because the term is currently in vogue with many black so-called Americans? Do you think that the response would have been different if you entitled your book "The Destruction of a Cracker Mentality" or "The Destruction of the Honky Mentality"? For many of us black people function like whites with black skins. The so-called nigger is a creation of racist man and racist woman's 500-year assault on the psyche of black people worldwide, and blacks no more like parrots repeating words and phrases which we don't truly take the time to understand. That's his question about your use of the term nigger in the title.
Well, first you have to understand that I think that it's very important that we use words to communicate clearly and precisely what we're talking about. My issue with using the word revolves around the idea that blacks are doing one thing and niggers are doing something entirely different. Now, I don't like to label people or use that term, but so I try to limit it to just a mentality. I don't want to say that there's no such thing as a natural nigger, so to speak. There's just behavior that is proscribed and written out for us by our enemies. So when we talk about the term, I think that it's important that when a person looks at that term, to make the initial determination, is he talking about me? Am I a nigger, or am I a nigger? Is this something that is my condition by birth, or am I a nigger because I'm mirroring all the behavior of that could commonly be described as nigger mentality? Because if you look at the book, we're really talking about behavior. We're not talking about individuals. There's no natural person born in the world that can be described as a nigger. It's only a person who, through ignorance and through the propaganda that's constantly directed at African people from the cradle to the grave as to who they are supposed to be in the eyes of their historical enemies, that creates this so-called nigger mentality. So I think it's important right away for a black person to make the distinction of the fact that I'm operating in a culture where I may assume that everybody is black and therefore sympathetic to some of the goals and ideas that I may have in terms of advancing and improving the race, we know that that's not true. We know that in most cases you're operating as a black person who is trying to be progressive and trying to move forward, but you're really surrounded a lot of times by people who are suffering, unfortunately, from nigger mentality. And in identifying it exactly for what it is and calling it exactly what it is, it gives us an opportunity to really meet the problem head on and to really look at the problem for what it really is. I don't feel like a nigger. I don't think that I'm a nigger. I don't behave like a nigger. I understand what nigger mentality is. I give a very detailed explanation of what it is. And again, we're using the term not as part of an attempt to glorify the term or to promote the term, but we're using the term because it is precise language, and we need to call things what they really are. I could have made any other kind of title, but I wanted to focus on what we can do to solve the problem, because too many times one of the most insidious sides of white supremacy is that we focus so much on what they do that we forget the power that we have to control what we can control. And we can do a lot to eradicate nigger mentality simply by just making ourselves aware of how it operates and when we are amongst ourselves, or how we function, in the way that we relate to each other. So I thought that was very, very important. And I wasn't really trying to be commercial. I could have said the end mentality. I could have said a whole lot of different things. But I really wanted the book to appeal to individuals who have been fighting this uphill battle, not realizing that we have been betrayed, or our efforts have been betrayed, because we lack the awareness to know that there's a large segment of us who are so helplessly brainwashed that until we resurrect that mind, or at least indict that mentality, it's going to be very difficult to move forward.
I totally agree. Context of white supremacy, and I think a lot of what you reference as the nigger mentality, I think your whole book is about that. All of this is a result of racism, white supremacy, how they have groomed, totally. My question, I told you I wanted to begin with this. When you were on the program the first time, June of this year, I thought it was very important, because we bring up consistently on this program that there is one race on the planet that is the white race. They are the only folks who are functioning as a race, practicing racism, white supremacy. You said on that broadcast, black people, we were not looking at each other and saying, oh, we are the black race, and we're going to function on this planet as a black race. We were not doing that, and we certainly, if you look at our conduct, are not doing that now. And you talked about how that's something that has to be acknowledged as we strive to correct some of our problems. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Well, you got to understand that if you're going to be the greatest thief on the planet, you have to tell the biggest lies. And in order to be successful, you have to be able to even convince your people that there's something that is so different about somebody else that you have a right to steal their land, to disrespect their way of life, to disrespect their culture, to enslave them, and to mistreat them. So the ideas of white supremacy was dreamt up by the elite among the so-called white race. Anybody who does a scientific study knows there's no such thing as race. Everybody essentially is a human being with genetic roots from African people. That's just the scientific reality. So, but that does not mean that the social reality mirrors the utopian vision that the science might give you. The fact of the matter is just the opposite. Nobody respects the fact that genetically, origins traced to Africa is undisputable. What people concentrate on is their ability to rob, lie, and steal using this fallacy of racism. So white folks are not prepared to give it up, not even the poorest white folks, because it gives them a competitive advantage. When they tell all of their people that we are superior, we are chosen by God, we have a right to rip these people off, these people are nothing more than savages, these people are nothing more than a bunch of disorganized monkeys in the jungle, and we can rob them and steal them at will and rip off their resources, steal hundreds of millions of their people, enslave them, build our whole system of wealth off the exploitation of these people. Now, the sad part about it is nothing has changed. White folks still feel this way. It's not socially acceptable to say a lot of this stuff, but the fact of the matter is you can see through their public policies, you can see through politics, you can see what's going on with the world, that nothing has really changed except the game has gotten so sophisticated that the propaganda that supports it is essentially a lot more benign, but the fact of the matter is the results are still the same. When you look at who's incarcerated, when you look at who's unemployed, when you look at who's catching hell, who has the inferior schools, whose families are under attack, whose institutions are being destroyed, you'll find that it's us. And it's not being done by accident. It's being done because it's a plan. Because our inferiority, our dysfunctionality is necessary to maintain white supremacy. If we wake up, this can't happen. And so the bottom line is if you can continue to convince people that the natural order is whites on top, directing the situation, and everybody else playing a subordinate inferior role to that, and you can sell that to even people who have historically been oppressed by whites, you can get away with a whole lot of stuff. So that's really what the issue is. You know, it's very important that we realize that if they made a decision that they're going to operate with this artificial construct that we call race, and we're going to develop a competitive advantage based on these ideas about race, then we have to put that in check by saying that, you know, we may have been, you know, Fulanis, Yorubas, Hausas, you know, whatever African tribe you want to come from, but it is necessary for our collective survival to come together with an ideology that is respectful to all of our histories as African people, and that will help form a buttress to the onslaught of white supremacy, which we are still falling like and being cut down every day by with this whole system of white supremacy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very important concept. Wanted to make sure we touched on that. And I think it'll continue to be relevant as we move forward with the program. I believe Justice is also with us, and she might have some questions as well, Mr. Blackman. Justice, if you have some questions for Mr. Blackman, your line should be open. Please proceed.
Can I be heard? Hello?
Hello? I'm here.
Okay. Greetings, Mr. Blackman. I have some questions about in the area of religion. I was just wondering, how does religion affect you?
Well, first of all, I'm a real serious student of all world religions. Let me just say from the very beginning that there's a great deal of wisdom that can be gleaned from an analysis of the different religious beliefs. But I study it from a little different perspective. My perspective is, how does it affect African people, and how does it impact our inability or ability to move forward and be progressive as a people? And what my studies have shown me is that it's practically impossible to convince African people that religion should be placed on the back burner, regardless of the fact that our historians will show you that none of us actually arrived in this country. The vast overwhelming majority of our people were not affiliated with, for example, the religion of Christianity. Yet, during our ordeal in this country, or our ordeal in the Western country, or when we made contact with when Europeans made contact with us, we have become a Christianized people for the most part. Our people are predominantly Christians and Muslims, overwhelmingly. And this is very interesting because we have a very interesting political and social experience with both of those religions. When you look at the religion of Islam, you see a religion where justice and equality may be spoken of very highly in the Quran, but the Arabs have a history that predates even Islam in terms of enslaving Africans. Europeans who crusaded in the Middle East to, historically, they claim to regain the Holy Land, sat by the campfire when they put down their weapons, and the idea was exchanged that the Arab said the African is an ideal slave, and when the European discovered the so-called the New World, he wanted Africans to be his preferred laborers. He tried with the Indian, but there were certain reasons why African people were essentially better conditioned to do this. Long story short, we have a lot of problems with religion. Now, what the people fail to realize is that there must be a separation between spirituality and religion. Spirituality is so native and natural to African people. We are a people who are excessively spiritually inclined or religiously inclined, is what they say. In fact, if you do a Google search, you will find that no group of people are more overwhelmingly believers in the Creator or God, if you will. They say we run in the neighborhood of 98, 97% of our population. I mean, you can go to the prisons, you can go anywhere, and you will find most of us have some concept of a God or have some kind of relationship with religion. The problem is that because religion is so or spirituality or this connectedness with the divine presence is so central to African thinking, it is almost difficult, if not impossible, to come up with a formula for our liberation that does not involve God. And therein lies the problem. While we are people that may have a church on every single corner in our neighborhoods, sometimes 2 or 3, we suffer from horrific social problems. We're witnessing the wholesale destruction of our youth. They're being led down a path where they're being told that this alternative lifestyle, embracing homosexuality, is something that is progressive for us, when we know that this is not really something that we practice as a people in mass in any considerable numbers until we made contact with, you know who, these Europeans. So I'm not saying that because a person engages in that particular lifestyle, there's something wrong. I don't agree with it personally, but I'm against it for other reasons. I'm against it because I know, first of all, that it is counter-revolutionary, and I think it's a way in which is being directed at us in such a way that we are exceeding any kind of rational numbers that even that lobby of people that support this so-called lifestyle say is normal. For example, the homosexual lobby will tell you that 10% of any given population may have a natural proclivity to follow a particular lifestyle that leads them to engage in homosexual behavior. I believe that statistics are showing currently that this generation of African Americans is running, 25 to 30% of our young people are embracing this as a lifestyle. I see this more as a reaction to the collapse of the black family and to the distortion in the numbers of available, or in the numbers of healthy relationships. Part of our problem is that we don't understand how religion is used as a tool of war. I don't want to deviate too far from the subject. Your question was why? What is our relationship with religion? Religion, for the most part, if you look at it as a social scientist, you know that it has been the most effective tactic in neutralizing our resistance to our total oppression. Religion, I always say, is the best refuge for a cowardly people. It's very easy to hide behind Jesus or Muhammad and ignore the real reality of what's going on with your people. But if you are a real God-fearing person, you know that you must be engaged in some kind of acts of resistance designed to get our people off their knees, because our next step, they're killing us en masse. But it's done so subtly. It's not even done so subtly. It's done with so many other creature comforts involved that you can't even see that they have fattened our people up for the kill, and they have got us to a disgraceful level where we feel even guilty about even talking about our liberation in this country that's supposed to have so much abundance and have so much propaganda pointed at justice, and we're trying to do the right thing. They gave you a black president. A lot of us were deceived by that. So like I said, there's a lot of things that affect us in a very negative way. Religion, to me, is extremely negative if you don't understand what the real agenda is. And I always tell people to never forget that the very same people who taught us these religions have an awful history at respecting our humanity. If these people were so Christian, the people that taught these religions to us, look at the horrific, beyond horrific, the totally insane, inhumane things that were done to us. And then question yourself as to how is it possible for them to have, how could I respect a religion that does not even have enough information in it to tell you that what you're doing is not only wrong, because a lot of people say, well, there's only a small percentage of white people that own slaves. But overwhelmingly, it's just like white supremacy. For every white person that does not perceive themselves as being powerful in the society, they know that white supremacy benefits them. They know that. They're not giving that none of those benefits associated with white supremacy. They simply say, well, I'm not a racist, and I don't know what my ancestors did, but I don't have a problem. That's fine. You can say that, but when it comes down to spending money and you having to sacrifice something so that Africans can experience some level of justice in this country, that's when you get all the resistance. So like I said, it's just a game. To me, religion is very, very detrimental to us because we don't take the religion and use the religion or use these holy books to point them in the direction of liberating our people, and that's the problem with religion.
Do you celebrate any so-called holidays?
Well, I like Black Solidarity Day, November 1st. Usually most black people know nothing about it anymore. I do participate, me and my family, in Kwanzaa celebrations, and that's pretty much it for me and my family, you know. Most of the time I spend, I try to educate people about the true history of most of these pagan holidays, and why a lot of these holidays, I mean, holy for who? They're not holy to me. The foundation was never really spiritual, and like I said, we experienced so much injustice. You talk about July 4th and different things like that. We experienced so much injustice associated with some of these holidays, it's ridiculous. You want me to believe that some fat guy with a long white beard is running around giving people's children's toys when most of these people are killing themselves just trying to deal with the parental guilt of not being able to provide certain, distractions for their children. So to me, I think that we would be better served as a people to tell the truth about stuff and to tell a real history about stuff so that we don't have to get caught up into this frenzy that they give us every time they want to make some money. You know, we follow them right down that alley, get hit in the head, and get robbed.
I was just curious, like, why do you celebrate those holidays?
Why don't I celebrate them? Or why do I celebrate them?
Why do? Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, the concept of Black Solidarity Day is a righteous concept. We should have days in which we think about our blackness and the importance of us being united in our blackness. You see, one of the biggest problems we have as a people is we don't really live in the context anymore. We do not live in the context, and you cannot function without living in the context. You show me any progressive people on the planet or any people who are making, quote-unquote, progress in controlling their lives or progress in being able to exert influence on the larger society, and I'll show you a group of people that live in a particular context. They look at the world with a worldview that reflects who they are, and that it enables them to make progress. So I think it's important that black people do no less. We have to live in a context. You show me anybody on the planet. Everybody's living in a particular context, and we are afraid to say, I live in this context because we are so used to being controlled by others that we're scared to say, this is the context that I'm living in my life. Now, the power of living in a context is very, very, cannot be understated. It doesn't matter what white folks are doing if we are together doing for each other. For example, when you look at the black community and you see the constant reality all over the globe, our economic interests are in the control and in the hands of foreigners. Okay, now what's the problem with that? We have no control over none of these foreigners' economic base. I live in New York. In New York, you can go in any black neighborhood, and you'd be hard-pressed to find black-owned businesses. We certainly don't have enough. We wouldn't even be having this conversation about the massive unemployment in the black community if we controlled the business spaces in our community. Why don't we do it? Because we are people that have been taught that we have no unifying connection with each other. We have no cultural connection to each other, which is completely untrue. We are all African people, whether we're from the continent or over here, whether we're from the islands, whether we're from South America, wherever we live in the world, our history is very similar. We have a history of colonialism or outright enslavement by Europeans, period. I don't care if you're in the blackest part of Africa, you have a history of foreign domination, foreign control of your resources, If you're over here, you're probably more than likely 99.9% some kind of offshoot that came out of slavery or whatever the case may be. So the bottom line, we have a very, very unifying history if we would just be honest about it. But the reason why we can't look at our history is that history forces one to think about the concept of justice. And justice forces one to think about issues of never again. Issues of justice cause you to think about revenge. Issues of justice talk about, teaches you that you must insulate yourself from this kind of oppression. The problem with our people is we've been lured into cowardness because we have been terrorized in this for the last 500-600 years, particularly, even longer than that if you want to deal with the Arabs. But I'm saying we've been under a lot of oppression and terrorism for so long that we are even scared to even talk openly about who is our open enemy, what they have done to us, and what we need to do to counter it. Most of us would rather just go along to get along, and most of us don't like to raise these issues because, like I said, when you raise these issues, you have to be responsible. If you are a man and you know our history, you have a responsibility. You can't bring children into this world and expect them to live their life under the domination of white supremacy and do nothing about it. And this is why we speak out against these churches and these mosques who teach our people who come in huge numbers, and you never tell them about their real survival issues. You got them lost on pie in the sky after you die, these artificial concepts of what is goodness and all this other kind of nonsense. And frankly, I tell all those people, most of y'all are going to go right to hell, because on the last day, if God should ask you, what kind of world were you born into, you're going to have to respond, if you're honest, a world that was sick with racism, white supremacy, and other forms of oppression. And then the next question the Creator will logically ask is, what did you do about it? And you can say, I went to church, and I paid my tithes, and I gave Creflo Dollar $1 million, or whatever the hell story you got. He's going to say, what did you do to stop that oppression? And this is where most of us are going to fall short. You can make all your prayers every day. If you're a Muslim, you can run to every church. But until you stand up as a man and a woman and say that we have to do something so that the way for our children and the people that are here will be easier, and so that the way for our people will be something that will be progressive, you really haven't really matured into manhood and womanhood. You're still a child. You're still a boy. You're still a victim of white supremacy, because you really don't have to be no victim. If you make up your mind that if white people can come up with a system that protects their interests, then we need to come up with a system that protects our interests. I'm a black nationalist and a Pan-Africanist. There's no hatred in that. I'm simply saying that our people have a duty to unite and to respect our common history and to build and structure a world that allows us to breathe the air and have some peace. I don't want to spend my life being manipulated by others. I don't want my children and generations beyond them to continue to be manipulated in the white supremacy scheme. It's not really necessary. We got a whole continent that we're disaffected and disconnected from because white folks want it that way. So all the things that we are failing to do, in my opinion, you can't get black people to do anything unless you move them on a religious level. And that's why I'm starting a church. It's not a religious church, but it's the first true church of African redemption. And our motto is that we're not concerned about you in the sweet by and by. We're concerned about you on earth. You can call us a supplemental church. You can call us whatever you want, but we have to make our religion has to be revolution. We have to make some changes, and we have to make them changes together with ourselves and not being assisted, aided, or guided by foreigners. That's just my opinion.
Sorry about that. I had to press my mute button. What do you do when you celebrate those so-called
Well, essentially, on Black Solidarity Day, I'm fortunate enough to be a business owner, and you'll find that most black men who are able to function in this society either own their own business or somehow find some way to become wealthy, because if you have to work, it's a lot of times very difficult. But Black Solidarity, I'm very fortunate. I grew up in Harlem, in a very My parents were Garveyites, very conscientious of the importance of struggle, and that was inculcated in our children, and the children in the family. We lived in a house where we had a very strong African aesthetic. We had beautiful pictures of African men and women on the wall. We talked about achievement. We talked about a lot of the different things that have become no longer in vogue amongst our people. So I had a very clear understanding. Now, in the 70s when I was growing up, Black Solidarity Day was a much bigger thing than it is today. Most people have never even heard of it. I run into a lot of people, if they're old timers, they've heard of it, but and if they were paying attention, but a lot of people, the message never really got out. And Kwanzaa is something that's grown in popularity. My only criticism of Kwanzaa is that why would you place it right at the end of white folks taking all our money as a people? Because a lot of times I've been to Kwanzaa celebrations and black people can't even do commerce with each other because white folks then got them on the 25th and they broke. So we need to think about strategy all the time, and we need to make sure that we have, but I do like the principles of Kwanzaa. It at least makes you think of the motherland. There are at least some concepts that are designed to build your character. So, to me, it's a progressive expression for African Americans or African people around the world. But frankly, there's not a lot that we have in the way of holidays. And to be honest with you, we don't need a whole lot of holidays. We need to be focused on 24/7 what we can do to build the kind of society that's going to give us control over our destiny as a people, control over our lives, and a greater level of personal satisfaction. And this is the danger of not living in the context. I could not be married to my wife. We have 3 beautiful children. We've been married for over close to 10 years now. But the real reason why I tell her all the time, the reason why, in my estimation, why I can function in my marriage is because I live in the context. I know it's important that black men marry black women and black women marry black men and that they build healthy families together. This is one of the greatest acts of resistance we can do today to stop the onslaught of what we're experiencing, because we're being destroyed from the root, and the root of all society is family. And if the individual is so devalued and depreciated and his thinking is so messed up, he can't even get to that point, we have a real problem. Family is a very African institution. What they used to call tribes and all that is nothing but gigantic extended families. That's what we do culturally. This is who we are. At the end of slavery, you could find millions of black people searching for the displaced members of their family that were sold off by the slave master. We are very family-orientated people. And when you find a society where we're not building families, where we don't even marry each other like we're supposed to, where we don't even have the common sense to build dreams of service to each other in business, you know that we're very sick. You know that something has happened. We have been very, very disruptive. When you go to the motherland, you find that family is as sacred as it's ever been to African people. And that's something that we had into us up about maybe 40, 50 years ago. When they flooded our communities with crack and dope and all that other stuff because they saw that we were poised for a certain type of resistance. So there's a lot going on with us as a people. And unfortunately, we're not paying enough attention to know what is truly African behavior and what is something that's being imposed on us from the outside.
Why should non-white people be aware of the imagery that white people use against us?
Well, the bottom line is that I'm not in favor of wasting my time trying to build a coalition of people to help black people. There are a lot of people who are very educated on the manipulation of African people that are not African people. But the fact of the matter is, because we have been taught to so devalue and discount our own leadership and our own ability to think, I think it's highly detrimental for us to spend a lot of time trying to produce Tim Wises or people that are running around talking about white supremacy that happen to be white, or foreigners, or people who are not black who are talking about the oppression of African people, or even spending the time. We spend too much time trying to connect to the humanity of other people, in my opinion. The best way for us to demonstrate or to raise the level of consciousness is just to simply turn away from these people and to exert all our love and energy on our own people. If we want respect, all we have to do is stop mistreating each other. If we want respect, we have to stop letting foreign people get all in our pocket. If we want respect, we got to stop letting foreign people build our institutions and control our institutions. Our problem is we need to get divorced from this idea that we have to have foreign people involved in what we're doing in order for us to have any possibility of success or legitimacy. This, again, is the fallout from the terrorism we experienced as a people. We've been so terrorized that a lot of us actually believe that if we work with each other, they're coming to do a Black Wall Street on us, or they're coming to do something else on us. That's not true. It's too many of us. We're almost 1 billion people on this planet. There's no reason for in the world that John Henry Clark used to say it best. He said, listen, we don't need no friends if we're going to be friends to each other. If we will work with each other, because I'm tired of hearing what they have to say about us. I'm tired of them criticizing us without having walked that mile in our moccasins. I don't want to hear about the failing black family from them. I don't want to hear about the fact that our children are undisciplined and they can't learn in the schools and they have this and that. I know what's really going on, and I know the social conditions that bring about this. I know a kid without a father, or his father's in prison, or his mother's on drugs, or whatever. I know what that's going to produce. What I would like us to do is say, listen, since you people have said that we're no good, we're inferior, we're stupid, stop taking my money. I'm going to just spend my money with my people. We're going to go play by ourselves. Let's take our ball and go home and work with each other. That's our best future. I tell our people all the time, this country has been here for 200, maybe 250 years, or whatever the case may be, as an institution called the United States of America. We got to get divorced from these ideas. African people have been on this planet for 1 million years. We're the first people on this planet to form societies, to build institutions. So the bottom line is that we need to stop trying to work with what white folks have established, because when they established this country, they wouldn't have us in mind. There's no black and the red, white, and blue. We were slaves. So what we need to do is say, you know what, that's okay. I'm in this country, the political situation as the United States of America, but that does not stop me from building my republic, the new Africa, or whatever I want to do. I can do, because plenty of people in the country are operating in the context and they don't give a damn about the red, white, and blue. I live in a neighborhood with the Jews where I live in this neighborhood. It's a black and Jewish neighborhood in Crown Heights. These Jews don't give a damn about this institution we call the United States of America. All they're concerned about is their being able to function toward their objectives. And this is what black people must do. We got to stop getting all involved in what other people are doing and focus on what we need to do, because we are crumbling. We're crumbling. We got cracks in the foundation that have to be repaired, and we can repair if we can stop having other people interfere with what we're doing. That's very important. So we gotta be aware of that. I'm not caught up into what this country, who they elect for president, what's going on with their economy. I know we got a whole continent over there, and we're interfacing properly with those brothers and sisters over there for our common survival, and we're doing things over here to change the economic dynamics of what's happening to us, then we'll be in good shape. That's the bottom line. We don't control a single thing that really affects our lives. We don't control the water. We don't provide the power. We don't provide the food, the clothing, nothing. And so we see our young people unemployed. We see our old people unemployed. And it's not because we can't be producing everything that's being produced for us by foreigners. We just refuse to do it because, again, we do not live in an African context. All you got to do is live in the context of what you was created to be. Now, you can tell that no other people have a problem with this but us. And that's the result of white terror. We refuse to think about what is in our interest as a people. Because until we start to think like that, we will simply continue to be the slaves of these white people. You know, Martin Luther King used to be fond of saying, it's hard for somebody to ride on your back if you just stand up straight. And that's the situation of our people. We got to stand up and take care of ourselves and stop worrying about the games that they're playing. Turn off the propaganda. Buy your own radio stations. Buy your own TV stations. And stop criticizing and wasting time with those white people. We can't defeat them militarily. These people are killers from the pit of hell. You see what they just did in Libya? These people are killers, professional killers. That's all they do. They lie like hell. If you look at that Libyan war, you will see propaganda at its best. The most charitable country in the history of Africa. This man is giving out money to more black African countries than anybody. Of course they had to destroy him. Your president, Mr. Obama, the guy you gave all that support to, the first country he attacks that he didn't inherit is an African country. The first leader he destroys is the leader who's put millions of dollars, billions of dollars into the establishment of the African Union in the United States of Africa. So and we sitting here listening to the propaganda that you get from the corporate media all day, and we think that there's a semblance of truth to that. These people lie. It's their religion. How many times, I mean, the Indian knows this, the real African people, our people used to know this. But like I said, we walk in, hand and foot with these people today because, like I said, we don't own no institutions that will educate us and tell us the truth. So we are people that have the capability. We have the resources. We're not a poor people in this country. Collectively, we control, serious money. But like I said, the fact that we don't live in the context is really killing us.
What are some suggestions of how to not have the focus of black people be on the area of religion?
Well, the first thing you got to realize is that there's an economic component to religion. And, the fact of the matter is, there's a reason why religious institutions are tax deductible in this country, because they engage in pretty much the same thing that the governments love, and that's mind control. They love to have a whole people focused on what's going to happen in the sweet by and by, because as long as you're going to get your 6 feet under, and as long as you're going to get your, what does it say in the Bible, the meek shall inherit the earth? This is completely true. When you drop dead, you'll get your 6 feet under, and that's all you're going to ever inherit, because everybody else has stole every damn thing. You know what I mean? Why is the book talking about render unto Caesar? Because the religious institutions and the governments are walking hand in hand together. They love religion, because when there's social injustice, what prevents you from taking to the street is all this fake morality that they teach you. You can't even get real because you've been so neutered and so told constantly that, look, God, Jesus, whatever the case may be, so you can't even get mad about injustice. You become fatalistic. Oh, God must have wanted this way. God don't support no oppression. They don't talk about a God of justice. They just talk about this God that forgives all these sins. Why do you think they got people concentrating on the personal failings of people instead of the failings of the society that's raising these people? They put out people every day on these TV shows, Maury and Jerry Springer and all this other garbage. You know what I mean? They have an agenda. But really, they want to make you think that your own personal corruption is the reason why you have a problem in your life. But it's not that. The real problem is that the whole society is systemically corrupt. The options our children have are ridiculous. They're not dropping out of school because they don't like an education, but they don't see no connection with no upward mobility and this pseudo-education that they're getting in these schools. They know that there's plenty of black educated folk that can't find jobs, so our kids are not crazy because they're dropping out of school or all want to be rappers and basketball players. They want to do this because they don't see a society that is saying we need black scientists, we need black doctors, we need black lawyers, we need black physicists. But they don't see that, and they don't see it because it's not really being something that's looked for. We have to play a role, and our role that they want us to play is a role of you take a back seat to white folks, and you go ahead and corrupt yourself, because you got to remember, in the 1950s, we had the moral high ground in this country. No question about it. We were innocent people kidnapped by these racist, vicious racists, placed in a viciously racist society. We had the absolute moral high ground. Our family life was intact. Do the research on the 1950 census that showed that there were more black fathers in the home than any other race in the history of this country. We had intact family life. But over the next 50 years, they destroyed all of that. We had intact family life. We had a sense of solidarity. Our communities weren't dominated completely and totally by foreigners. We did have a black business space to speak of, but all that ended when we had the consumer rights movement, commonly misunderstood to be the civil rights movement. All the civil rights movement accomplished was the allowing of African-American consumers to spend their dollar with the larger white community. And ever since then, we've had this relationship with corporate America that really doesn't favor us. You spend billions with these people, and they disrespect us every day because we're people that don't make no demands. Other than that, you accept me as a human being, I'll spend all my money with you. So when you go to buy that expensive car, yeah, they like you for a minute, pretend to like you, till you ride out of the damn place and the value of the car depreciates by 20%. You're just a dummy with your money. So everybody does that. The Japanese insult us all the time. We buy plenty of Toyotas, Nissans, and all that other stuff. So we are people that are really, really naive. And like I said, in the world of today, you can't be that dumb and survive. They're getting ready to house Africa. They're getting ready to start their AFRICOM over there in Libya. You know what I mean? And all these things are taking place because we lack global awareness. We lack the understanding that we must live like others in a context that protect our interests. Now, we cannot continue to use the excuse of slavery or the fact that we caught historical amnesia when these people came and kidnapped us and did all that stuff. We cannot continue to fall back on that. What we have to do is we have to say we have to be men and women, and we have to build a society that is of where people understand that individually we must be committed to building the kinds of institutions that will sustain our people. And I recommend that all black people that have any kind of sense start off by making sure that they are involved with family life. So it's very important. We should have families because that is our most important institution. We should have close-knit families. We should be serious about family life. We should see our relationships as revolutionary. That is very important that the men and the women have high respect for each other, that they get along, and that they understand that they have a common oppressor. Not this nonsense you get on the Color Purple, some fictional story written by a woman who's disgruntled or a lesbian who's been married to some white man to try to give people the illusion that the black man has been the historical oppressor of the black woman, when in fact the only historical oppressor we have is the same person. You know what I mean? The white man. You know what I mean? And the white woman. They was both down on this. They did that because it favored their interest to do so. So we just have to deal with the reality, and that their kids today, or the extension of these people who have locked all that wealth that they ripped off from black people into their culture, nothing has really changed. No matter what platitudes they pay to us today, the fact of the matter is they're not giving back a dime of that wealth. So if we did that for them, we should at least be trying to do something for ourselves. Because all this talk of reparations is a waste of time. We can repair the situation right now from a monetary standpoint by just taking our dollars and putting them back in our pockets. And this is very critical. We have to talk about economics because you got to remember the largest part of slavery was an economic crime. The man didn't go get you out of Africa to teach you Christianity. He came to Africa because he was looking for somebody to work for nothing. So we got to understand every time we fail to control our economics, we are continuing to advance the cause of our oppressors. We continue to make the same people rich that brought us over here to exploit us, instead of trying to enrich ourselves, empower ourselves, employ our own people, employ our own youth. This is very important.
Thank you very much. And go ahead, Gus.
Context of white supremacy. Our guest, Mr. C.C. Blackman. I guess you already brought it up big time. Institutions. We spoke before the program, and you talked about how one of the major reasons that we have not done a better job combating white supremacy is that we have not established institutions. And I just wanted you to share with our listeners, what do you mean when you say institution?
What I mean when I say institutions is we have to remember, I was once online in one of these chat rooms, and there was a white supremacist, I guess, and he made this statement that he could come into the black community and have intercourse with a man, woman, or child at will. And the only reason why he said that is he believes that our people have fallen to a level where we lack so much pride, that we are so devoid of any kind of sense of protecting ourselves or any pride in who we were as a people, that anybody could basically come and do whatever the hell they want to do. One guy made mention of the fact that if he was a foreigner and he wanted to make money, he would run into the black community because as a foreigner, he'd be treated with respect, despite what they talk about crime statistics, and he'd be welcomed like a conquering hero. The fact of the matter is our failure to build institutions, because Neely Fuller was talking about institutions, and he was talking about bricks and mortar. That's not what I'm talking about. If you look at the history of people like Mary McLeod Bethune, people who actually built educational institutions with thrown out furniture, small facility, and it just expanded, because it was a need, and there was a respect, and there was a love and an appreciation for what the sister was doing. She was able to build the Bethune-Cookman College down there in Daytona Beach, Florida. If we study our history, The most important institution that is essential for African people is family. We cannot function outside the context of family. That's how we were evolved to function as people. And the reason why you have so many people who have given up on racial struggle is because most of us have family strife. Most of us can't get along with mother, sister, brother, cousin, all this kind of nonsense. And this is by design because they have created an environment where it's impossible for us to trust each other. We can't trust each other because we are living in separate lives. We're living in different contexts. Some of us agree with what white folks is putting down. Some of us is against it. Some of us is employed. Some of us feel like we are so integrated into the system we can't speak against it. So you have a whole potpourri of different feelings about how we're relating to this society, and they don't agree. So everybody's put on this island. But we can agree, if we were honest, that our history is really the same and that our conditions are the same. Anytime you have so many African Americans incarcerated, so many kids dropping out of school, so many with AIDS, so many with cancer, diabetes, all these preventable diseases that's coming from our suicidal lifestyle of eating and behaving in ways, and I mean, let's not even talk about drug addiction. We have so many things that we have been led to because this is about benign destruction. We must help the African American destroy himself. All the cotton has been picked in this country, so we don't need them anymore. We have replaced them with Mexicans and different people that don't have the same historical dilemma that African Americans may have, and so we're wiping them out. Now, the only counter to this is that they have to wake up and say to themselves, you know what? We are a dying group of people, and despite what was done to us, and despite the ugly history that we have in this country, these people are not just going to voluntarily give us reparations and do a whole lot of good things, or, you know, we're going to convince them one day they're going to wake up and say we've been so unjust. That's not their nature. And if you're waiting for that, you might as well go ahead and blow your brains out because you're waiting for something that's never going to happen. But what we can do so we can live hopeful lives and happy lives is we can say, I'm going to spend all my time being black. I'm going to spend my whole time trying to invest in the improvement of the conditions. We are all a link in the chain, from the past to the present. We can't talk about we love Frederick Douglass, or we love Malcolm X, or we love Dr. King, or we love Elijah Muhammad, whoever it is, and then in our time not do everything we can to be representatives of black dignity. Because even if you cannot go out and set up a business, you can build a family and keep it together and train your children, train your family to function in a context that improves the condition. Now, in the church that I'm going to build, we only have one ethic, and that ethic is do what's in the interest of black people, period. So if lying, stealing, selling drugs is not in the interest of black people, that's not something that you do. We must do what's in our own interest as a people. Others have understood this. We must understand that. And that does not mean that we hate anybody. Doesn't mean that we're going out to do anything corrupt. We're simply saying that if you say that I'm retarded, you say that I'm crazy, you say I have no morals, you say that I'm a savage, you say that I'm this, or you say that I'm that, I'm going to get around all of that by doing what I have to do for me. I'm going to do what I have to do for me. And this is very important. I'm going to appreciate, you know, if you say one guy came out, I don't know if you heard this guy, Japanese fella came out, because you got to understand, other people have now been affected by white supremacy. It's not just white folks. Japanese guy does an article for Psychology Today where he says, oh, black women are the least attractive women on the planet. He did some survey, and he brought in all these different men, different racial men, and they all rated the black woman to be the least attractive of all the women on the planet. And his theory was that because she has a higher testosterone level than even a lot of white men on average, she is less desirable. So now I was saying to myself, well, this is ridiculous, first of all, because if you're going to talk about somebody being attractive, you go to the men that deal with these women. And the fact of the matter is, if you catch any unbrainwashed black man, he will tell you that black women are by far the most beautiful and attractive women on the planet. His mother was a black woman. More than likely his interaction was with black women. So he loves and he appreciates their beauty, which, is self-explanatory to a healthy-minded black man. We do know there's a lot of propaganda in the society. We know that brothers have lost their way. You know what I mean? And we know that we are really of people who from the cradle to the grave are given a white aesthetic all the time. But if you live black, you know enough to know not to fall into that pitfall. So like I said, it's very important that we get into institutional building, and if we can't do anything, just build a strong family. Build a strong family where you raise your people, you raise your children, or raise those around you to understand our history, and inculcate them a sense of dedication to living in this African context, living with the understanding of history, understanding what your enemy's game is. Because the name of the game now is that I don't have to control you with a whip. I don't have to hang you to death. All I got to do is control the propaganda that surrounds your life. Even if I got to get some black people to give you the kind of propaganda that keeps you enslaved, if I got to do that, I'm going to do that. And that's what our enemy has said. He said, I'm going to control you with propaganda. So now freedom becomes slavery, because all the choices you are making are being made based on the fact that you cannot disconnect from this white supremacy matrix that allows you to believe that you're free when you really are a slave who knows nothing about who you really are in history.
Wow. I wanted to get suggestions because Dr. Mwalimu Baruti, he's been on the program repeatedly, and he contends that one of the primary objectives of the system of white supremacy is the annihilation of the black family. That's one of their have-tos to make sure that the system continues. And I think under these conditions, it's just not going to be optimal. Black families, they're not going to be optimal under white supremacy, unfortunately. You touched on how things were better. Not that long ago, just 50 years ago, things were much better for black so-called families. Can you give some suggestions on things that black people can do to improve, bolster that primary institution, the family?
Yes. First, let me say that Dr. Baruti is one of my favorite individuals on the planet. This is a brother who has done an analysis of the sexual agenda associated with white supremacy as it relates to African people, which is to get us to a point where we can no longer even reproduce. One of the definitions of genocide is to destroy a person's ability to reproduce, and they have been largely successful with a large percentage of our people, especially by trying to get them involved in so-called alternative lifestyles. Now, with that being said, I want to address the question of what can be done to strengthen the probabilities and possibilities of black family life. Excellent question, very important. First, we have to recognize that the black family is without a doubt is under attack. There's no way in the world the individual can be under attack and the family that produces the individual is not under attack. If I can destroy the family and destroy them from the root, I have a great chance of being successful. Now, if we look at our history, we understand that there was a mass exodus of black fathers. Primarily, it started in the North following World War II. Following World War II, Africans in the North huddled in these cities that had large factory bases, and essentially what happened was they became very militant. This was a generation, you got to remember, half the black population that lived in the South in the agrarian environment ran to the North with the onset of World War II. They found work in these factories. Many of them stayed and started working for General Motors and different other manufacturers in this country when this country was a manufacturing power. What essentially happened was when the onset of the civil rights movement came, they realized that there was a new militancy in African people, primarily situated in the North. If you recall, I don't know if you're old enough to recall, but I'm 47 years old. I remember when I was a kid, when we used to have discussions of what went on in the civil rights movement, folks would say, oh, you know, I would never put up with that. Boy, if these whiteys hit me at a lunch counter, I'd have did this, I'd did that. Not understanding, you know, what an African living in the South was actually really going to, and how visceral that racism really was. So it was easy to say that in the North. And in the North, we tended to say, oh, Malcolm was the guy because he insisted on self-defense. And Dr. King was, he was okay, but, that nonviolent stuff we could never get down with. Now, this misunderstanding or this difference in approaches was primarily due to the different social conditions. The man in the North was extremely militant, but upon the death of, felt himself more militant than the Southerners. That could be debated, because it takes a lot to take that. I don't know if I could do that, but, whatever the case may be, the guy in the North, especially when they killed Dr. King, you had over 150 cities in this country where black people were running out of their homes rioting. Now, from that point on, they began this process of the criminalization of the African-American community. They began to flood the communities with the dope, the heroin. They hit us again in the 80s with the crack. But they were going to stamp us out. They came with the Great Society programs, told the black woman, listen, if you want home relief, your agenda must be to get rid of that black man. We're not giving it's aid to dependent children because we're not trying to support your family life. What we're trying to do is destroy your family life. So we had all kinds of reasons where, they look back on what they did to control us during slavery. In slavery, the white man understood that in order to take the militancy or remove the protection from black society, you had to put the man in a subordinate position. So you developed the principle of Aunt Jemima being superior to Uncle Tom. Aunt Jemima, or the black woman, was the head of the black family. The reason for this is that the laws were passed that essentially said that a slave a child follows the condition of his mother. In other words, if the mother was a slave, the child was a slave. This allowed white men wholesale access to black women and never having to deal with the responsibility of the mulatto child because the child followed the condition of his mother. The black man was like a conquered man or a man who had lost a war, and he was told that your women and your children are the exclusive property of the white man. If you interfere with that relationship, I'm going to kill you. So we have a long history of the castration, the removal, the destruction of black fathers at the head of black households. But one of the reasons white folks and their think tanks realized that one of the reasons why you had this brewing militancy in blacks in the North was because you had strong family life, because the black man was now engaged in factory work that gave him greater financial dignity than he would have got being a sharecropper down south. Because you got to remember, when Dr. King came along, he had still met blacks in the South who had never seen money. They had still been sharecroppers for so many years, going to the grocery store, signing their name in the book. So even though slavery formally ended, supposedly in the 1860s, the truth was they got another 100 years out of many of us, because they still maintained control over the land. We still needed to make a living, so we went to work with them, and the bottom line is that you had a slave who you just barely kept alive. The blacks never made enough money to pay back the sharecroppers, so a lot of them really just ran away to the North, for lack of a better word, and got these factory jobs. So they said, oh, the blacks are militant in the North because they are able to find employment in America's factories. So what did America do? She picked up her factories and dropped them in Southeast Asia and put the black man right out of the work. He drafted many of the black men, sent them to Vietnam. They came back with these heroin habits. There was no jobs. So at the same time you see the manufacturing base of America going overseas, you find that you find the collapse of black families. And what did they do? They started with the propaganda. They came up with a whole series of propaganda stories, colored girls, right up into Women of Brewster's Place, right up into The Color Purple. You have Steven Spielberg, a Jew who was involved in, and I'm not into no anti-Semitism or none of that kind of stuff, but that's just what the fact is. This guy, I was reading articles where Jews were complaining about why would this guy be making this movie, The Color Purple. He gets together because at the time he's America's greatest illusionist. He gave you Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He gave you Poltergeist. He gave you Raiders of the Lost Ark. He's giving you all this stuff with all this special effects. And all of a sudden now he's doing a movie about Celie. He's doing a movie about The Color Purple and black people. And what is the illusion he's trying to create here? That illusion is that black men don't love black women. The premier line spoken by Danny Glover in that movie is, "Silly, you black, you ugly, and you a woman." How was I supposed to? And they put this movie out, ironically, during Black History Month in 1985 or 86. I'm not sure which one it was. But I can't remember which one it was right now. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of our people took this to be the history. So rather than telling the people the real truth, is that our people have always understood that the common oppressor was the white man. Suddenly you get this splitting, this polarity between black men and black women. Sisters are doing it for themselves. Ain't nothing going on but the rent. All these kinds of attitudes designed to polarize black men and black women. Statistical fact, it's much easier for sisters to stay in school and get an education, much easier for them to get employment, okay, and that's all good. But what a lot of sisters have now come to realize is that, listen, getting a man today is a luxury. To find a black man that's able to function in this society, that is able to find a job or be able to be self-employed is like amazing. You know, so in New York, some sisters call them BMWs. It means a black man working. And it's almost a difficult thing to find because it's difficult by design. So if a man is charged by nature to be the protector of his family, it's essential, if we're going to build strong black family life, that we have men at the head of those families, okay, guiding those families and protecting those families. A man used to get his respect. The respect of the man commanded in his family had nothing to do with his education, and a lot of times it had nothing to do with his income. It had to do with the fact that that man was expected to lay down his life in defense of his mother, in defense of his wife, in defense of his children, in defense of his sister or his brother. So men were given respect not because they were smarter or not because they were beating people up. They were given respect because this is what nature calls for. So they don't want the black family to have any protection. So naturally, 75% of our families are now headed by women. The problem with this is that a lot of these women are either the breadwinners are so overwhelmed that who is really monitoring our children? Our children are left to be raised by this wicked society where they spend a lot of time on the kind of propaganda that turns your child into a total stranger. You have only so many hours in a day to speak to your child. They're speaking to your child 24/7. They're speaking to them through the music. They're speaking to them through the culture. They're speaking to them to the TV. They're speaking to them in the school system. And what they're saying is that you better conform to our vision of what you are, and your parents are crazy if they tell you anything different. So this is why enlightened black people must come together and say, listen, it's not just about you and I in some kind of attraction relationship. You know what I mean? That's all European, because the African relationship is respect-based, okay? Most of the times, if you go to Africa, you'll find that a lot of the families, people are dealing with arranged marriages, and they make a lot of sense. The parents get together and say, well, you know, you come from an honorable family, and I come from an honorable family. When our children are of age, let's organize a marriage between them. Those people don't walk through the door with this fantasy of Roman antics and this romance, you know what I mean? I'm going to get together with you. It's love at first sight. We at the apex of our relationship when we meet. So everything is got to go to divorce because it's all based on a whole bunch of attraction principles, but there's no real compassion. There's no real humanity involved. That's not how we do things as Africans. That's why it's important to study your culture. But the important thing is to realize that the first thing we must do is we must all work to overcome the brainwashing of the European aesthetic. This is very important. If you haven't had an opportunity to learn to love being black, what you were created to be, what it looks like, how it manifests itself, the sound of his voice, whether, you know, if you don't learn to love that African gene pool, you might not be a good candidate for making a marriage work. Secondly, you have to understand your history. You have to understand the context that we live in the people, as a people. You have to understand that everybody's not going to be happy that you're married. You got to remember, we were a people that were predominantly married just 50 years ago. You find very few people over the age of 25 that wasn't married. But today, most of us are unmarried. And most of us have had these lousy relationships or these divorces because, again, you are dealing with your relationship as if you are dealing in normal circumstances, when, in fact, everything is designed to destroy that relationship. And people say, well, white people are getting divorced. I'm not concerned about white people. We cannot afford, we can't survive. We don't have the support systems that they have when their relationships fall apart. They have all kinds of huge resources to make sure that their children stay well-adjusted and make sure that they stay the course. They have all kinds of social pressure to make sure that even though they dissolve their families, they still have a positive result in terms of what they're producing in terms of children. So we don't have those support systems. So when we fall apart, the children get all messed up, and a lot of us don't even get married. We need the responsibility of marriage. I don't care how you do it, but it's got to be something that's committed, because these little loose entanglements where the parents get together, it don't look like there's no real commitment there. It perplexes the children. It causes problems later on in life. So the number one thing we have to do is learn how Africans love, how they build marriages, how they build families. Because we used to do this instinctively and naturally. A lot of this came with us, but we have lost that. So the best place to get it is to either study how we conducted our relationships before, or to go back to see how Africans deal with that whole question. Because this is very important. Family life is central to African people. How Europeans live, that's their business. I don't know what they do or what, but family, if you find any progressive people on the planet, you'll find that the foundation of what they're doing is usually rooted in a strong family life. So family life has to become a value. I see a lot of guys talking about, I'm a revolutionary, I'm for black power. They don't want to get married. If we're not about all this womanizing and all that other nonsense, that's not going to take us nowhere as a people. We have to make commitments to our children. Our children are crushed today. And I live in the Northeast, where the abandonment of fathers to their daughters has created psychological problems among black women that's unbelievable. Same thing with the sons. How is a boy going to learn how to be a man he's never seen his father? How is he going to learn how to make a living he's never seen his father make a living in that society? So the real struggle, the real test of manhood is to stick with your family and to build that strong institution. You know what I mean? This is what we have to do. If you made mistakes in the past, go back and correct them. I had an uncle, he went to war, and he got 2 women pregnant because he thought he was going to die. A young man came back. Years later, after he got married, he had to go track his children down, become part of their lives, make sure that they could get through school, do all kinds of things. But that's the kind of responsibility and struggle that we have to be about as a people if we're going to have any future. Because you can say whatever you want about the white man, you can say whatever you want about the mafia, but these people begin in them by taking care of their family. And we can do no less since we taught the world that. We're the first people to organize ourselves as society. So we got to remember what we've forgotten, and we got to get back to that.
Context of white supremacy. Our guest, Mr. C.C. Blackman, author of Towards the Destruction of a Nigger Mentality. I will hit the phone lines. If you have a question on the TalkShoe line, it is *8. On the free HD line, it is *6. I know I had one more question. At least. I know for some folks listening in, they're thinking, great information, agree 100%. White people definitely have been on their job to obliterate black families. We can see, the ruin all around us. However, simple white people have done such a good job that it is difficult to even, begin with the basic building blocks of a family, i.e., finding, a compatible mate. Because I've heard a lot of folks listen to the program who said that, and even once you find that person, staying the course, white people have made it extraordinarily difficult to do so, increasingly difficult, I would say, over the last 50 years. What to do about just the initial building blocks? So many, as you said repeatedly, so many of us are out of context and confused and, all over the place. How to even begin?
Well, the best way to begin is, first of all, make sure that your ways and your actions demonstrate that you are out of step with what white folks want you to be. That's number one. Make sure you do not look in any way or carry yourself in any way. And this is difficult, especially if you're on the job and you feel the social pressure to look like what they want you to look like. But one of the things I tell people is that there's a way of behaving that shows that you are totally unaffected by their onslaught of propaganda designed to make you package yourself in a way that looks, like one of the things I do is I wear an afro. Okay, now people say, what is the meaning of that? I am not in any way trying to look like anybody contemporarily. Why? Because I want you to know that if you're dealing with me, this is what you're dealing with. Okay, you're dealing with somebody that's going to be Afrocentric, that's somebody that's conscious of that. Now, I'm not interested in anybody. I just got to find one sister that's willing to work with me in the context that I'm operating from. One of the things I tell people all the time, when you don't have proper guidance or you don't understand the context that you're living in, you go after things that's not for you. I know what's not for me. I'm not going to go after somebody that's completely brain dead and unconscious, and I'm trying to be progressive. It doesn't work. I tell sisters, if you want to meet a decent black man, go to the kind of forums and the kind of places where you might find one. I also tell them, listen, if you're making some money, you looking to marry up, get a brother that you know is decent and honest, that's struggling, and y'all start a family business. But do something so that record that shows that y'all recognize that, listen, we are under attack. Black women can't survive without black men. There's no whole bunch of white men, a whole bunch of foreign men just standing at the beck and call waiting for black women so that they can marry them and take care of them. That's not going to happen. Okay, most of the time, sisters go over to that side, and they wind up that they get used and abused because that's what they sell the black woman as. They sell a black woman as a disputatious, disagreeable, disgruntled vixen who's probably a prostitute and a whore. That's how they promote black women. And it's up to black men to elevate our sisters, our mothers, and our daughters to the status of women that deserve respect. And one of the greatest things that we can do is have the attitude. I teach a manhood training initiative, and I tell brothers straight up and down, have the attitude that I want to take care of my wife. I don't really want my wife to work. My wife does not work. And I enjoy that, not because I'm an oppressor of women. I just know that when we're raising our seeds, we need to have somebody that's completely committed to making sure that that home is producing exactly what we want. So we enjoy it. My wife could work. I don't want her to work. And I found that when you do the study, you find that men whose wives don't work usually are much more productive. This idea that everybody got to be away from the home trying to satisfy the material drive of the family or trying to, be reflective of what white folks say you got to do to get ahead is a complete and total mistake. The overwhelming majority of Japanese women, when they get married, they either work for their husbands or don't work at all. And the Japanese man is considered the model of the most productive man on the planet. They work the most hours and they make the most money. Half of the Japanese male population is a business owner. You know what I mean? So this is why we have to really study and find out what's really going on. You can do a whole lot more when you start to get the men to man up, and you got to talk to their strengths and not talk to their weaknesses. But as far as the sisters are concerned, there's an overwhelming amount of sisters that you can work with. Most women, I'm telling you, there's a lot of women. What they're looking for is they're looking for men who understand how to be men, who are sincere, who are not trying to play games, who are not so confused or so caught up into reacting to racism that they forget their own African humanity. So what we have to do is we have to, if not the sisters, I'm telling you, I always say that 75% of the problem lies with the men. The men have been so depreciated and destroyed, and people don't like that. But as a man, I know that that's really the truth. We got to man up as men. We got to grow up as men. We got to stop. We have to start talking to each other and building with each other. Black men are not protecting each other. And I define a black man to be a protector of black women and children, black institutions, a protector of your fellow black men. This is very, very important. We have to protect our culture. Our culture is in need of protection. And because the man has been turned into essentially a predator on the black woman, you find a lot of black women who distrust black men. But women still can tell the difference between a man and a chump. And white supremacy is turning a lot of us into chumps. A lot of us don't have that father figure or have not even seen how men even operate and function, have no kind of military training, and I'm not talking about what they teach in these European military societies, but I mean military training in terms of looking at how your people were essentially conquered. You know, we talk about slavery, but slavery was a military operation. They kidnapped us, they conquered us. And when they say conquered, that means just being subdued by force of arms. But we're only really conquered if we stop fighting. We're only really conquered if we give up. And I'm going to tell you something. Dealing with the sisters is not really hard if you're not chasing the wrong thing. You know, you have to go out to if you're real, you got to find somebody that's real, and I think that eliminates that problem. But if you are going to work arm in arm and you don't have this European concept of what family life or what, like I said, this whole phony Roman antic stuff that they teach people about this romance, where a guy can come and get your daughter and lay up with her for 10, 12 years, and then say, hey, you know, I want to go in a different direction. That's not how we do things. That's not how African people do things. Family life is central, man. It's a mercy for you. It's a mercy for the sister. It's very important. It's a buddy system. It's a military alliance. It's a lot of different things, and we got to get with the program.
I like that. Looking at black male and female unions as a military alliance. Like that a lot. I have another question, but I'm going to hit the switchboard. I'll ask, later on. If you want to dial in, I would suggest the free HD line, that number 760-569-7676. The code is 564-943#. I'll give it out one more time. 760-569-7676. The code is 564-943#. Person who dialed in on the TalkShoe line with a hand up, Demery, I think. Demery, your open. Did you have a question?
Can I be heard?
I can hear you.
Is it?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Greetings, Gus. Greetings, Mr. Blackman.
Greetings.
My question is, would you say that non-white people of so-called African-American descent collectively suffer from a nigger mentality created consciously by a system of white supremacy? And if so, how do we come to a realization of this degraded state of mind?
It's very easy to recognize the degraded state of mind because it's all behavior-based. This is not about name-calling. When you are engaged in black-on-black crime, when you undermine black family life, when you destroy black institutions, when you function on an animalistic level, because you got to remember, they were trying to reduce the African to an animal during the days of slavery. He resisted all of this. And as a result of that, he was even in bondage. A lot of our people had a greater level of decency than we have today. We were more humane to each other. We were more compassionate with each other. We would not have survived slavery unless black people possessed enormous ability to demonstrate concern and compassion for each other. What has happened now, since we are in the days of so-called emancipation, which is a joke, we have forgotten the lessons of slavery. But we would have never survived that unless we had prodigious levels of humanity. This is why at the peak of the civil rights movement, you listen to the music coming out of black America, I mean, it was extraordinarily beautiful. People wasn't singing about sensuality, baby, you got a big booty, you got this and that. People was talking about ain't nothing like the real thing, ain't no mountain high enough, you're the best thing that ever happened to me. We were talking about soul, we were talking about humanity, we were talking about decency, we were talking about love as it really should be. What has happened in the next 50 years? How do we go from that pinnacle to this trash we have today for the most part? We got there because we're not following our natural inclinations, we're following the inclinations of a foreign people. You know what I mean? Who see everything. I mean, I'm telling you, they made sure that they destroyed our music by promoting certain types of other music that we were making because they knew that was the best way to misguide us. Okay? If we stayed on the level that we had stayed on, you know what I mean, when we were producing people's, young Stevie Wonders and the Bob Marleys and some of the beautiful music coming out of Motown, if we just stayed on that level, that was revolution in and of itself. Because nothing moves African people more than music and religion. And they had to poison those things in order to bring about wholesale nigger mentality. And then what they do now is they give us a reflection of the ugly on a constant basis. To show you how susceptible we are to propaganda, study Superfly. Study the effect of Scarface. Study, what's that? That last trash that trash that Denzel put out. What is that? American Gangster. So now, for a black man to be an American, you got to function as this gangster, and you got to sell your heroin at the better price, and you got to walk down the street and shoot a black man in the head, and then go back and have your dinner. Why do they put this stuff out? Because they need to fill the prison industrial complex with young black men dreaming of this kind of success. They know that you have no other alternative for upward mobility, because you're not going to get with your brother and build business. You're not going to get with your sister and build business. You're not going to take control of your environment on an economic basis, so you're forced to be out there selling dope. For many of our young people, that's the only way they see any kind of African-American upward mobility involved in corruption that eventually is going to line, because all you're doing when you're selling dope is all you're doing is working for the local police, you're working for the prison industrial complex, or you're working for the FBI, who will come and confiscate everything you got after a period of time. You know what I mean? And throw your ass in jail for 25 years. So we got to get smarter, and we got to realize that it's not necessary for us to even sit down to see the degree, because there's nobody who has not been affected by nigger mentality. If you black and you living in this country and you over, say, 25 years old, you have been affected by nigger mentality. It's just about understanding it and trying to extricate those kinds of behaviors from your character. And that's what we have to do, because it's an attack on your character, and it's so insidious because you think it's now become your culture. It wasn't naturally your culture, but that's become our culture. We are mired in a lot of things that we do that are hateful and destructive toward each other. Our young people stand on the same corners where their grandmothers and mamas and fathers raised them and terrorize the neighborhood by selling dope and shooting up and down the place, killing kids, old folks, working people. And, we're terrorizing ourselves, all in the name of trying to be what white folks want us to be.
I'm going to, Demery, if you hang tight, I'm going to get two of the other callers, and then if you have any clarification, I'll double check, time allowing. I just wanted to throw in really quickly, just so we don't miss, white people want us to be niggers. Be very clear about that. That makes them ecstatic. Longtime investor, listener, co-author of Black Love is a Revolutionary Act. Pam, your line should be open.
Good evening to you, Gus, and to your guests, and to Justice. I'm really enjoying this show. You put a lot on my mind. Hi. You put a lot on my mind, and the question I have for you is, I agree with you completely about everything that you said, and I do agree with you about family. What advice do you have for those of us who have family, lots of family members who are white identified and who are married to white people and who are completely lost? How do you establish any closeness? And we're not talking about young people. I'm not talking about young people here. I'm talking about people over the age of 40. How do you establish a tight-knit family with family members who are married to white people?
What happens is when white people and black people mate, they produce black children. I don't care if the father's black and the mother's white and the father's black. It really doesn't matter. And the reality is that no matter how liberal they may think they are, or no matter how racially involved they are with white supremacy, those children are still going to grow up in the world where, for the most part, they are perceived as black people, and they're going to have all of the same problems that black people have. Now, if you find somebody that is married to a white person, generally speaking, the white person chose them, and generally speaking, typically, the black person is bringing a great deal to the table. The problem when black people marry white people is that, they a lot of times think that takes them out of their revolutionary struggle, and for most of them it really does. A lot of us, let's face it, are not really engaged in struggle anyway. But like I said, the real problem comes if they produce children. If they produce children, they have to raise those children in the context to understand that they are black, and this is where you're going to get all of the mixed messages, because essentially these children a lot of times either have to try to find white spouses, or they're going to wind up really with some real issues with the parent, because or sometimes even making the just getting along with their peer group. Most of the time, these relationships have to live, either they have so much money or they have to live in the black community. That's just how it goes. And generally, blacks are very accepting. We are the least xenophobic people on the planet. If you live amongst us and you happen to be of a different race, business people know this. You can be of any persuasion and function effectively in the black community. We will not discriminate against you based on the fact that you may be a foreigner. In fact, that might be an advantage a lot of times. We will boycott our own people to support foreigners. I'm trying to get black people to end the boycott against black people. But the point is, so usually when you have those relationships, there can't be there's usually not a lot of honest talk about the racial dynamics of the world we live in. See, racism may not be our wish, but it's just a reality that we have to live in that context. So if I was a person that was trying to relate to folks that had biracial marriages, because one thing about me, I'm not personally racist toward anybody, and I'm not a racist at all. I am racially conscious, because I would be stupid not to be. If something's trying to cut off my head, I think I should pay attention to it. But what happens is, like I said, a lot of those people are difficult to reach because they live on that island. A lot of them are in denial about racism. A lot of them are frustrated with the fact that there even has to be a conversation about race. They think that that's antiquated, it's something that's old-fashioned, when in fact racism is so ingrained into American culture that I marvel that people can try to be dismissive of it, because either you have so much money or you just have so much protection that protects you from even having to think about it. But every day of the week, I mean, if you have to interact with those people, you know that their racism is a reality. And no matter how benevolent these people may think they are, the white person in the relationship, the truth about the matter is most of those people are white supremacists anyway. They still think that they're doing the person a favor, and they still think that they've rescued those people that happen to be black who are married to them.
Okay, like you said, you can't, I've come to the conclusion that at their particular stage and their age, they're not going to be reached. Even talking about racism realistically is threatening. So I guess you have to just, I guess I'm just frustrated because there's no way to build a tight-knit group with so many white-identified people. So I guess there has to be another solution.
Well, the solution will come when the economic conditions in this country become so severe, and it's on the way, that race will surface like you never believed. It's interesting that blacks don't even realize that we are still the #1 victims of hate crimes in this country, and that all of that ugly racism is going to come to the surface very, very shortly. It never fails. As soon as there's a decline in economic conditions in America, race shows its head again. And you're going to see a whole lot of racial situations develop, and you're going to see a whole lot of those people having difficulties, because you can only bury your head in the sand so long. And a lot of those relationships were established, if they're in their 40s, they were established if they've been married for any extended period of time, at a time where, a lot of celebrities and different people were trying to live that illusion that we had gotten to a post-racial America, which will never happen. How can you get post-racial when there's never been any justice? Just to say that I acknowledge racism was wrong, that don't mean nothing. Where is the results, the economics, the power that's supposed to come from your acknowledgement of what you've stolen? I guess we agree.
Well, thank you very much. I'm going to continue to listen, and I enjoyed this tremendously. I'm going to.
Thank you so much.
I had one quick question. Where would you like us to purchase your book? Do you have a website or from?
I'm at NubianDirections.com. You can purchase it right from the website, and you can leave messages there for me as well.
Nubian
That's
Directions?
Nubian Directions with an S.com.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sister.
Good to hear from Pam. Always. The address for NubianDirections.com, it should be in the description. If you're listening at TalkShoe or Archive, should be in the description. NubianDirections.com.
If you do a Google search of my book, Toward the Destruction of a Nigger Mentality, Nubian Directions will come right up.
There you go. Mr. C.C. Blackman. The person who dialed in from New York with a hand up on the talk line, your line should be open. Did you have a question? Caller in New York.
Good evening. Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yes, you can.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
I can hear you.
There's a lot of background noise.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me try to step down. CC Blackman, we've spoken a number of times. We met on Fulton Street back in 2006. Love your book. Purchased about 30 copies over the years from you and other people. Just a question. I mean, you and I talked about it on the street for about 3 hours, but I'd like you to share with the listeners, what do you think is the most constructive way if you are a male and you are encountering young, confused black males and you are broaching the topic of them suffering from a nigger mentality? Say, for instance, if you are a person who purchases your book and you want to introduce it to your nephew or a younger person in your environment, what do you think is the most constructive way to go about that conversation?
Well, very briefly, the first thing you need to know, let them know, is that somebody is out to kill them, that somebody is out to make them other than themselves, somebody is out to homosexualize them, and the society is not receptive to them. One of the great problems that we have is that we are people that's completely under attack, who are experiencing wartime statistics, but nobody's ever told us that there's a war against black people. And the fact of the matter is, a guy once said that you have to drive a tank through the living room of most black people to let us know that we are at war. But if you look at who's in the homeless shelter, who's in prison, who's on drugs, who's unemployed, who's dropping out of school, who has no family life, who is considered a public enemy number one, it's undeniable that's the black male. And so the bottom line is that with all those things going against you, you have to ask yourself, why? If this was any other group of males, Congress would be meeting on this, monies would be appropriated, all kinds of things would be happening to prevent this. Why is it not happening for you? Because you are unwanted labor force. You are a threat to for a variety of reasons. You have the history that should make you a threat, and somebody's trying to kill you. So once you let somebody know that somebody's trying to kill you, and my book is talking about ways in which you are going to be complicit in your own destruction, that becomes interesting. You know, that becomes interesting now, because I'm going to try to, my book is basically trying to tell you how to survive. Because if you could become complicit with nigger mentality, you will definitely die. You're going to be destroyed. There's no question about it. No question about it. If you take the routes that this society has earmarked for young black males, you will be destroyed, and there's no question about it. And another thing is very important to tell them that to ask them what their working concept of black manhood is. Because if it don't start with being a protector of black women and black children, a protector of African civilization, and a protector of your fellow black man, they don't have no working concept of black manhood, which means that they're going to be destroyed. Period. There's no ways about it. We can no longer sugarcoat the fact that we are a dying race of people in this country. We're dying, but it's being given to us in such a way that a lot of us can't even recognize it. They have fattened us up for the kill. We've become lethargic in our thinking. We've become unimaginative, and we have lost our collectiveness, and so we don't recognize that what's happening to the collective is so diabolical. We just think in terms of our individual survival, and that's why we're in a very, very dangerous state right now.
Thank you.
Thank you, my brother. Appreciate your support over the years.
Good to hear from you, victim in New York. Let's see. I'm going to make sure the person on the free HD line, the caller 7439, did you have a question for Mr. Blackman? 7439. Last four digits, 7439. Were you just listening, or did you have a question? You for did you have a question? Oh, I'm muted. We'll try one more time. Okay, I think they're just listening. Thank you for listening in. Okay, I'll double check Demery to make sure his question was good, and then I'll get mine in. Demery, did you was your question answered? Demery, was your question answered?
Yes, it was. Thank you, Mr. Blackman, very much. I had, and thank you, Gus, but I had one more question, and that was that black people in this area of the world are accommodating to white people, and so what could black people do to counter the mindset, taking into account that there's a large portion of black people seeking white validation, with the understanding that the problem is white people?
Well, what we have to remember is that they're getting ready to come up on the eve of September 11th. September 11th is getting ready to be commemorated for the 10th year. Now, we heard a whole lot of talk about terrorism after September 11th. But what we have never really analyzed is how that term really applies to white people's behavior over the years. We're talking about the lynchings. We're talking about the flooding the community with dope. We're talking about the wholesale castration of black people socially, politically, and economically in this country. When you understand terrorism, then you understand the accommodationist mentality. We have to be honest. We have been terrorized into a lot of the behaviors that you see today. Look at Black Wall Street. Look at a lot of different situations where we've seen what white terrorism means to black people. So I understand why a lot of us have been so. You see, when you don't have a team that's united, when you don't have a people that live in a context, you're going to get a lot of people that go over to the other side in hopes that white folks will accept them, and in hopes that white folks will work with them, and in hopes that white folks will see them as human beings, because they don't feel like they're living among a group of people that have any kind of plan for any kind of cohesive progress. So I understand why a lot of us become sellouts, more or less. And they want to be, and then you got to understand the role that white paternalism plays in the psyche of black men. Jesus is white, God is white, Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, he's white. Everybody associated with black life that's in control, that's able to alleviate pain or suffering, whatever the case may be, is white in a lot of black people's thinking. So because the slave master typically fathered more black children on the plantation than any black male, we have a lot of psychological issues with this great white father image. And so we want to be acceptable to these white folks who have terrorized us, killed us, murdered us, and really hate us. So I think it's important to understand that that behavior is going to be seen until we start to unite. And it's going to be a whole lot of scared Negroes, and that just can't stop us, because the bottom line is it's never everybody. It's always a handful of black people working in their places, or a whole group of people who start off small trying to enlighten those around them. I don't expect everybody to embrace this message. I expect most people to reject it, because that's all they've been trained to do is reject it. But I know that some of us still have to have a little Marcus Garvey in us. Some of us still have to have a little Malcolm X in us. Some of us still have to have some revolutionary spirit in us. And that's the kind of people that you have to communicate with first, because the strong amongst us will influence the rest of those who are acting like a bunch of sheep.
Wow. I will check if you are on TalkShoe. We're getting close to the end of the program. If you're on TalkShoe, star 8 if you have a question. I'll give a few minutes to see if you have a quick question. Star 8 on TalkShoe. I just wanted to get in to remind folks, you do not need everybody to participate to have a big impact. The so-called country, the United States, it was founded. You didn't have most of the white people in this area. We're not, trying to say, hey, we need to revolt and ditch the folks in Britain. That was not most of the white people. It was only a handful of folks who said, get this, they're not doing right by us. We need to break away. Small group of people can have a big impact.
Of course.
The terrorism point, I try to tie that to white people all the time. They are the
world's greatest terrorists.
Exactly.
Those are the world's greatest terrorists by far.
In the history of the known universe. And that point, I think, is huge, because I think a huge aspect of the nigger mentality, black people, we have
terror
been
induced.
Totally.
Terror induced.
Totally. And
you got to remember now, just to make a quick point, they used to cut the pregnant black woman's belly open on a slave ship and let the baby fall out and throw it overseas. Now, people say, why would you say something so horrible as that? That's a history, because they want to instill fear in those Africans. These people are sick, man, and they lack humanity on a level that's unimaginable to African people. One of our greatest vulnerabilities is we keep applying our sense of humanity onto other people who don't really possess this. Europeans don't have no concern for humanity like we do. So the stuff that they might do to the environment, the stuff they might do to the food, the stuff they might do in war, the lies they might tell, we can't even recognize. You think they give a damn about religion? Please. We're the suckers of religion compared to them. They don't care about nothing, because they're not going to let nothing check their greed and their desire to dominate, control, exploit, mistreat people, period.
Totally agree. I just wanted to throw in, as you said, much of our behavior, terror induced. And I think one of the...
all the time. The way they talk about 9/11, we should be talking about their acts of terrorism. Shooting people in my town 41 times or 50 times, that's terrorism. Don't you stand up, black man. Don't even be a man. Matter of fact, we're going to kill you. We don't have no reason for killing you, and we're going to walk. That's terrorism.
As I said this Tuesday at the dark end of the street, white woman will be here to talk about the term she used, the ritualistic rape of black females. What else is, terrorism. What else can you call that but terrorism?
It's terrorism. But they just not raping females, they raping males as well. Oh yeah, don't get it twisted.
Pulp Fiction.
These people, a lot of their aggressive behavior is sex-based. It's some real psychotic stuff. All these deviant forms of sexual expression that we learn from them, that's not African behavior. These people have some real issues when it comes to sexuality and dominance and all this other kind of stuff. So, we need to be aware of that as a people. A lot of this sexual deviance has to do with warfare and what these white people are all about. They want these compromised black males. They got a hell of an agenda. And like I said, our naivety of it is really pathetic. For the numbers that they have taken out amongst us, it's pathetic that we are so naive to what their plan and what their system of white supremacy is all about.
Mr. C.C. Blackman, last question I wanted to get in for the evening. I think I'm not seeing hands. You talked earlier about, doing things to send a message that I understand the context in which we live. I am a black person, and I'm not trying to hide or be ashamed about that. And I understand my relationship to white people worldwide. And you said, having your hair a certain way, doing an afro. Just asking, I know a lot of folks have commented that, and I believe as well, we are in a very anti-black environment, and that many black people are not interested in being around black people who, are talking about racism and talking about, white terrorism and the way that we have been horrifically abused. How do you deal with the fact that many black people are anti-black and have no interest in, being associated with folks who are dealing with racism?
Well, unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about that. The bottom line is that, you have to show that you're going to walk and be fearless. And there's nothing really to be afraid. I find that white people respect you because, see, I'm not pretending that I'm not interested in what white folks are about. I'm just not interested. I don't give a damn what they think. They do not define the world for me. I'm a free individual as far as I'm concerned. So I'm free from the control of the white matrix. So what I do is I'll be myself. I'm not interested in their acceptance. It's almost a point of religion with me. I don't care what white folks are doing. I don't care how they feel. I don't care what they think. As long as they don't put their hands on me, I don't have no issue with them. I'm not even messing with them. But I'm not going to play that game. I'm not going to do that dance. I'm not going to create all kinds of anxiety in myself trying to figure out how they're perceiving me. I really don't give a damn. Now, I'm a big individual. If you saw me, I mean, I'm physically a very big person, so I guess maybe I'm courageous because of that reason, but I just really don't care because I know that the truth is that I find that when you show them that you genuinely don't give a damn about them and you're not going to take your behavior cues from them, they're forced to respect you. I'm not concerned about them liking me now, but you're going to respect me because I'm going to respect myself. And I'm not looking to you because they know they're trained Negro SEALs. They know damn well that there's a bunch of Negroes that look to them for behavior cues and look for them and feel slighted if they don't feel accepted by, those kind of weak people, I don't have no time. And what they're going to find out is that there's a rule that black people must understand. You will never, I don't care what you do to please white folks, you will never do enough. They'll say that you kill your mother. You can kill your mother, and that still won't be enough. They can say turn into a homosexual, be the ultimate non-threatening black man, and that won't be enough. It's never enough for these people. The only thing that satisfies them is that you kill yourself, and they wouldn't be satisfied with that. They would want you to dig yourself up and kill yourself again. These people are insatiable. Okay, you're just a toy to them, and you're just a thing to them. They never, ever will respect you. And the only way you're going to get respect is if you respect yourself and refuse to play that game and stop being, their Negro creation. Be a black man, be a black woman, live your life and live in the live in the black context, doing what's in the interest of black people, and the hell with white people.
Author
you don't see Asians sitting around worrying about what the white men think about what they're doing. They just go about their business, taking care of the business that Asian people got to take care of, and that's what's going to make them a success. But if you find us, we are overly concerned about what white folks think, how they feel, and they couldn't give a damn about us. And you're never going to impress them. You can talk as white as you want to talk. You can act as white as you want to talk. You can you can dress as white. You can process your hair. You can do anything you can. You will never, ever be accepted. Why would they accept you when they make so much money off of you rejecting yourself? They have so much control over mind screwing you into rejecting yourself. So they're never going to stop that game. As long as you are looking up to them for that approval, that is power for them. The minute you start looking to yourself, they are in trouble. Okay, that cuts them off economically, it cuts them off socially, it cuts them off a lot, and they steal so much from us, whether it's music, art, science, and whatnot, that they give us no credit for. If you cut them off, they'll lose their mind.
Totally agree. Yeah, and I have seen that. In fact, I've even heard. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
Make all your organizations all black. Don't let them infiltrate on no kind of level. I don't care if whether you're a member. And 92, don't have people that's married to white people in your organizations. If you want to be with white folks, fine. But if you want to do something revolutionary, keep white people out your business. Don't have them in nothing that you're doing. Don't associate with them. Live black, period. And you'll do much better. Your children will be better adjusted. You will be much better adjusted. Your economics will improve. Leave white folks, and for that matter, the rest of these foreigners who've also been affected by white supremacy concepts. A lot of people on the planet have been poisoned by white supremacy. They said, look how white people have made all this money off of African people. You know, there's a reason why I thought about why God placed Europe at the top of Africa. Because at the top of Africa, these people are controlling the minds of African people. We need to get a haircut and separate from these Europeans. It's only the Mediterranean separating us from those devils. So what we need to do is get a haircut. I've found in my life, and I don't like to be insulting, and I don't like to use terminology, but I tell my children that white folks are devils. Not because I'm emotional about it, but because that's what their history has meant to us. The most catastrophic event in the history of Africa has been the invasion of Africa by Europeans, period. No question. Nothing has done more harm to African people than contact with white people. And that principle continues to this day. Contact with white people is detrimental. We forget who we are. We got all kinds of problems when we get in contact with white folks. Because we don't understand the game that's being played, and those people are very serious about playing that game. And we're very naive to think that they in any way have any fairness in them. They don't.
I'm just echoing what you just said about, not having white people in your organizations, and you were talking about institutions and family being the primary institution. That should count for that institution as well. You're going to hear that. I think we should snatch that code directly from the white playbook. While they say, do not bring any niggers in the family, we should have the exact same code. If you marry a white person, you...
Listen, I'm telling my children, the only thing that will cause you to get instant excommunication is for you to bring one of them devils home. Male or female. I don't mess with them. And people really don't like that term, but I think that in my church, I think I'm going to canonize Brother Elijah Muhammad as a saint, because I think that I don't care what he did before or after, but that one statement that the white man is the devil is one of the keys to liberating your mind. Because unless you give that thought serious concept, you're not honest, and you really don't understand white people. As people will say, well, how can you say that? That's very, very important. Their behavior, the way they have related to African people has been without a doubt completely devilish, and they have not stopped. It's just on the level of sophisticated propaganda, but the policies of this country are still extremely devilish. Don't let Barack Obama and the White House fool you. He don't control no policy making. He's just a puppet that they got in place right now. You know what I mean? But the bottom line is that, we don't have no solution in American politics. Our only solution is us coming together and understanding the reality of who we are, where we've been, and what we must do to get out of the mess that we're in.
No, I'm not. I've never been into name calling. I'm not into name calling. But one thing that I can say, I see the logic in referencing white people as devils, seeing as they have referenced themselves as God, that it adds a certain level of balance because they've done so much brain trashing. And it's accurate.
If you look at what our treatment has been by these people,
totally.
You see, if I say devilish behavior is devilish behavior, there's no contradiction. You know what I mean? I'm saying your behavior has been that of a devil. How your people have related to my people, that's undeniable. History tells you that. I didn't enslave your people. You enslaved my people. I didn't brainwash your people. You didn't brainwash. I didn't. Oh my goodness! I don't have to. If you know your history, this is something that is. And I'm gonna tell you something. Over the years, in my interactions with them, the only thing that really grabs their attention, the only thing that really annoys them, you can call them hunky, you can call them this, you can call them that, and I don't get into a whole lot of name calling, but in my younger days, the only time I could really paralyze them to make them really understand who they are is when I said, you know what, you are a straight-up devil. That's the only time they looked at me with any real respect. Any other insult means nothing to them. But when you call them a devil, you have properly identified them because that's what their behavior has indicated. Now, all those white people that are out there saying, well, I'm not a devil, I don't do this and I don't do that. I'm not talking to you, but I am talking to your culture that you benefit from. So you can sit there and say, oh, well, I don't feel these devilish thoughts. This guy is promoting racism. No, I'm not. Racism, the one I'm saying, has no real power. What has power is the fact that the policymakers that are really affecting black life, they have racist feelings that are destroying black people. So me having a feeling is not even a feeling. It's just an analysis of history. And it's undeniable. If you know your own history, if you're white, you know that is true. There's no contradiction about that. That's why I was disappointed, and I love Brother Malcolm, but when he came back and, he had a different opinion of white folks, I was really disturbed by this because when I read the autobiography, I realized that he really didn't look into that enough because white people have not changed. They're still just as devilish, and just because a handful of them may be converted to Islam should not have made him make the conclusion that they're not devils. That's their behavior. And that's something they got to grapple with. I think that it's dangerous for the world to try to let them off the hook and pretend that they're not the devils that they are. Because you see what they just did in Libya. If that's not devilish, I don't know what the hell that was. And they're still doing. These people lie like it's their religion. And they're They still into games of conquest, and they still into games of oppression. This is how these people get down. So we have to be aware of that and never fall asleep on that. You know, never turn your back on a proven enemy. You know, I don't know what other black people are going to do, but in my family, I'm going to teach my children the truth. I don't want my children to be continuously victimized by white people because they were not told the truth about who these people really are.
Wow. Wow. Have you had any difficulties with your children? I know a lot of people have concerns. They don't want their children to, you know, be running around at 6 and going to school and calling white.
No. I'm going to tell you the truth about it is, first of all, from the time my children were born, we spent a lot of time showing the child that, you know, everything that he needs in the way of validation, everything that he needs in the way of love, everything that he needs in the way of being told the truth is happening right at home. When you do that, your children stay close. It's only when you lie to your kids and you don't tell them the truth and you make the children feel that external validation that's not coming from the family is more important than what's coming from the family. When you tell your children the truth and you prepare them for the society, they can go out there and laugh at the teacher that has racist attitudes. They can look at their interactions. They come back and report that, yeah, just like you told us, this is how they're coming at us. And children love that. But that network of support must be right there in the family. And if it's not there, then the child, you know, is vulnerable. But you don't really have, when the child is getting that truth told to him at home, and the parents are not lying to the child, and the child is being told about the mean streets that he got to walk down and what's going on in other people's families and why your friends may behave in certain ways and why they want to influence you in certain ways, and this becomes a very, very important way of protecting your children just by keeping it real and being honest. There's a lot of value to being very, very honest and being very real and sincere with your children.
Again, author of Towards the Destruction of a Nigger Mentality. Towards the Destruction of the Nigger Mentality, Mr. C.C. Blackman. Again, the address, it is in the description for the program, NubianDirections.com. Again, NubianDirections.com. You can get the book at the website. His email address is there. You can get more information about what they will be up to. NubianDirections.com. Thoroughly enjoyed having you on the program. Definitely love to have you back on anytime. Anything we can do to assist in your efforts, just let us know. Always a pleasure to have you on the program, Mr. Blackman.
Well, let me make this clear to you. This is my responsibility. I love to do this. It's not a burden. I always try to make myself available because anytime I get any type of forum to try to share information like what we're discussing, this is what I'm about. You know, so always feel free to call on me. I will try to make myself available all the time, at any time, to try to do something to enlighten our people. This is the responsibility of those that know, is to get out here and teach by any means necessary.
Again, Mr. C.C. Blackman, we look forward to having you back on the program to exchange views. We try to stay on our assignment, so definitely you will be hearing from me again, and we look forward to speaking to you in the near future.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed being here.
For sure. Mr. C.C. Blackman, have a fantastic evening. We will be in touch soon.
Thank you, my brother, and keep up the good work.
Will do. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Context of white supremacy. Again, our guest, Mr. C.C. Blackman, second time on the context of white supremacy. Get the book, visit the website. We definitely will have him back on the program. One of my favorite guests. I'm surprised I hadn't really heard of his work until I think May. Someone posted one of his videos on my Facebook page where he was talking about white supremacy. I'm really surprised that it took that long for someone to mention his name and his work, but I'm glad found out about him and had him on the program. We will definitely get him back on as soon as possible. I want to make sure I get out announcement, then I'll check so we can get the news article and all that good stuff. There was an error. I made an error on Friday. Anthony Pryor, I'd spoken with him, and we had a program set up. He had to reschedule, and I did not update the link. So the link was up on Friday. I know some people, they did tune in because they thought there was supposed to be a program. That was my fault. I didn't update the page in a timely manner. And again, the inefficiency of the talk show page played a big part in that. But that's what happened on Friday. It just got rescheduled, and I wasn't able to, or I did not update the page in time. But that's what happened. My error. I will do better about that. Thank you for the folks who tuned in. And yeah, you did not miss Anthony Pryor if you tuned in or tried to download. You didn't miss anything. It's not hidden. We just had to reschedule, and hopefully I'll be able to get him on in the next couple weeks because he did have some interesting updates when I spoke with him over the phone. But yeah, that was what happened on Friday, and everything should be good. Again, we'll be back on tomorrow, which would be Monday, September 5th. Pam, Trojan Horse, co-author of Black Love is a Revolutionary Act and Trojan Horse, Death of a Dark Nation. She'll be on tomorrow evening giving out codification strategies, program time 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Again, we will have white people back on Tuesday, September 6th. Professor Danielle McGuire, her book, At the Dark End of the Street, very informative. The ritualistic rape of black females. Lots of details. Man, tune in on Tuesday, should be very constructive. Also, Mr. Blackman, he mentioned 9/11 and preparing to celebrate the 10-year anniversary and this event of so-called terrorism. We will be marking 9/11 and the 10-year anniversary. We will have two programs next Sunday. Program number 1, Neely Fuller Jr., he'll be here. I think that'll be his 15th visit, will be next Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, and then immediately following, Dr. Welsing will be on next Sunday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. So that'll be our recognition of white terrorism for 9/11 next Sunday, to hopefully very constructive broadcasts. And we should have other broadcasts in the meantime. Justice, if you're on the line, did you have a news article to share?
I do not.
Okay. Groovy. We will take a quick news break and come back and do a news report. And, yeah, we'll see if anyone has anything they want to share before we wrap up. But we will take a quick commercial break. Context of white supremacy. Oh, invest if you think the program is constructive, and share the links. Very important. Getting other people to know about the program. Very, very helpful. So if you think it's constructive, you can put it on Facebook, tweet it, any other sites where you think black people and non-white people can find out and come check out the information. Please share. Very helpful. Quick commercial. We'll be right back. Context of white supremacy.
RacismDaily.com, your number one source for global news reports on race, racism, and overt actions of white supremacy. From Asia to the Americas, to Europe, to Australia, to Africa, racism is not a thing of the past. It is our current reality. Be informed. Be globally informed. You should be the first to know. RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com.
Is racism hurting you? On issues of race, are you unable to speak, think, and act with clarity and confidence? Are you tired of laughing when nothing is funny, smiling when you are not happy, agreeing when you really disagree? CounterRacism.com, you can learn specific strategies and techniques to counter the behaviors of the people who practice racism in all areas of activity, using words correctly, following counter-racist logic, even counter-racist science projects designed to reveal what racism is, how it works, and how to counter it. The open source code writing format allows you to pick and choose from a variety of counter-racist suggestions so you can produce the code that works for you. Stop by counterracism.com today and help replace racism with justice.
That's counter-racism.com.
Do you need a one-stop shop for all of your multimedia needs? Triumphant Multimedia is a skilled team of professionals with a passion for great marketing and chic design. Our specialties include consulting, brand development, copywriting, and creative graphic design that's second to none. We also offer photography, photo retouching, videography, and video editing. At Triumphant Multimedia, our goal is to provide highly effective creative solutions built to suit any individual need or budget. Give us a call at 678-732-8067 or check us out online at TRIMultimedia.com.
Hi everybody, welcome. This is Justice with the C.O.W.S radio program. If you want to learn about, understand, and counter racism, white supremacy, be sure not to miss a C.O.W.S episode. We keep them jammed packed with constructive information to sharpen your use of words to help eliminate the system of racism, white supremacy, ASAP. Also, for more information on racism, white supremacy, and to invest in my counter-racist efforts, please visit my blog, justdojustice.blogspot.com.
You're just saying just buckets and buckets of words.
Yo, this is Wade, one half of the Black Twins, and I want y'all to check something out. Our latest project, Double Consciousness, the Mixed Message. This will be dropping October 2nd, 2011, featuring various audio from Umar Abdullah Johnson and Dr. Kembaum, just to name a few. You can download this at www.gagmusicroom.bandcamp.com and at stlouismixtapes.com. That's STLmixtapes.com. Replace white supremacy with justice now.
This mixtape is only for victims of racism and white supremacy.
Alrighty, context of white supremacy. Wow, very busy. Hopefully we'll have a constructive week. I heard lots of good things. People saying that they enjoyed having only black guests on for the past, I guess, more than a month at this point. So perhaps we can do the blackout again before next summer, because there certainly were other black people that I was hoping to have on the program and just didn't have, could have had more time. So perhaps we can do another blackout. People, a lot of people said they found it constructive, and I think we got to hear black people from all over the world this time. We had black people from different spots around the globe last year, but certainly got to hear folks from a lot more spots this time around. And I was able to I had dialogue with the female victim in the area of the world known as the Netherlands, and she had some very interesting information to share. She should be coming on the program as well. Terrorism on the job, same sob story of racism, white supremacy, and the importance of words. Also, she reminded me, because of the area of the world that she's in, the film Manderley. I highly recommend folks check out the film. It's just an incredible film on white supremacy. I mean, if you can just think, when do you see a film on white supremacy where there is an actual code book in the film explicitly about the maintenance of white supremacy? That is Manderley. There is literally a code book in the film where white people detail how they, maintain their system of white supremacy. Literally. 2005, Manderley, the white person who directed the film and wrote, I believe, Lars von Trier. He is a white man from the area of the world known as the Netherlands. Danny Glover is in this film. William Dafoe. You just got what cowbells. You have a lynching, white mob violence. I mean, what to say? I wrote my first counter-racist film review on Mandalay. It's on the Counter-Racism website. If you go there and you look under the articles tab, Mandalay should pop up and you'll see my film review. It's very long. This is like when I was first understanding white supremacy. It's very long because of that, but also because this film is so, I don't want to say deep. It's so layered. There's so much in the film. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes, so it's longer, a little longer than most films, and it's so detailed. The language, the wording, it's just crammed. I could have written a lot more. If you see it, you'll understand. You should check it out. We will probably have a discussion on it. The victim in the Netherlands, she watched it and she had a lot to say. It's just like I said, when do you watch a movie on racism where there's an actual code book on when does that happen? Mandalay 2005. Anyway, for our news report, I thought it would be constructive to read a little bit of At the Dark End of the Street. This is Danielle McGuire's book to inspire reading. Actually, I was gonna read some of the earlier portions of the book because it just has tons of really grisly details about white people raping and all sorts of really sadistic sexual abuse. Enforcement officers raping black females. It's just really, you really get a better understanding of context. Like, I think having this sort of information, it gives it a lot more substance. It makes it a lot more logical, a lot more reasonable when a non-white person says sexual intercourse with white people at any time for any reason is totally incorrect. When you get a little bit more history, context on the nature of our bedroom interactions with white people, right? To make this mutually beneficial as opposed to rereading material that I have not read before, I'm just going to pick up where I am in the book. That way I'll be reading, and so I'll be advancing in the book, and you all will be getting to hear a little bit of information. I don't know how much I'll read. I'll read a few pages, and this will give you an idea. We'll get to see. You all can count how many times I say white supremacy as I read. I'm on chapter, I think this is chapter 4, Walking in Pride and Dignity. And this is where I'm at now. They're talking about the Montgomery bus boycott, which also was rooted around white people mistreating black females and just, total degradation of black people. Oh man, actually, I'm going to change. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to change my mind because the chapter that I'm on now, she's kind of moved away from the central topic of the book, the total sexual abuse of black people. So reading this really wouldn't give you a good sense of what this book is really about at its core. So I am actually going to back up. So this will not be quite as beneficial as I had hoped, but I think you all will appreciate, hopefully. So this is on page 21. This is the opening chapter of the book. And it's titled, They'd Kill Me If I Told. I hope I am coming through clearly. I will actually voice check myself. Pam, your line is open. And is my voice coming through clearly? Am I breaking up?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Outstanding. Okay. I'll read a little bit. And this should be of interest to Pam and lots of other folks. So this is Danielle McGuire, suspected racist, at the dark end of the street. This is page 21. Unsubstantiated charges of the rape of white women by black men had been part of the Southern political culture for decades. Rumors of rape were rooted in Reconstruction-era stereotypes in which white Southerners portrayed black men as the mythological incubus, a beast that attacks white women while they sleep, to disenfranchise African Americans and justify racial violence. Between 1880 and 1920, Southern Democrats fueled rumors of black beast rapists defiling pure white womanhood in an effort to redeem Dixie from the grip of Republican rule. Most often these campaigns amounted to one-side racial pogroms as white supremacists used white fears of black male sexuality to seize political control of the state and subjugate African Americans. Even after the white supremacy campaign, and I'm not adding any of these, I'm just reading straight from the text. I'm not going to codify anything, though that's two. We already got two white supremacies, and I didn't add either of those. Even after the white supremacy campaigns secured state legislatures and sanctioned Jim Crow, rumors of black on white rape conveniently surfaced whenever African Americans asserted their humanity or challenged white supremacy. Any assertion of any kind on the part of the Negro, as Southern historian W.J. Cash put it, constituted in a perfectly real manner an attack on Southern white women. During the 1940s, virtually any self-assertion among African Americans conjured images of amalgamation and fears of social equality, a euphemism for interracial sex. In a rant against wartime black activism, Mississippi Senator Theodore Bilbo, perhaps the most acrimonious segregationist in Congress, argued that every Negro in America who is behind civil rights movements dreams of social equality and intermarriage between whites and blacks. Howard Odom, a prominent sociologist from the University of North Carolina, urged that white fears of interracial sex sat at the center of wartime racial tension. In his 1943 study, Race and Rumors of Race, Odom documented the weird, wild stories whites told one another about blacks. Whites, he said, worried that demands for black equality heralded a bloody insurrection, similar to Nat Turner's murderous slave rebellion in Virginia in 1831. Negroes are buying up all the ice picks, whites told one another, waiting for the first blackout to attack. Many whites believed that blacks were also hoarding guns, stashing them in coffins and church basements, waiting for the right moment to turn the tables and overrule the South. I just want to throw in that ice pick. I think that is a phallic symbol. I've seen that before. Pattern recognition. It's just a lot of repetition of the same thing I've seen a lot. The most incendiary race rumors were about black men's insatiable lust for white women. According to Odom, these near hysterical stories reflected white beliefs that rising black activism indicated African American bold intentions to achieve the hated social equality, in quotes. Everyone had their own version of this story. Negro men were all planning to have white wives, whites whispered to one another in wartime North Carolina. And when all the white men have gone to war, they said, the white women will be left for the Negro men. Another tall tale traded among friends in Georgia told of a black man who warned a white couple that they better be necking now because after the war, we'll be doing the necking. In Louisiana, whites warned schoolgirls to never walk alone since there was apparently an outbreak of Negroes attacking white women. Unsubstantiated rumors of black men attacking innocent white women sparked almost 50% of all race riots in the United States between Reconstruction and World War II. In 1943 alone, there were 242 violent interracial clashes in 47 cities. Gee, that's probably just documented. That's probably low. Beaumont, Texas was typical of small manufacturing towns reeling from changes wrought by the war. As blacks and whites from surrounding areas poured into the Gulf Coast town for defense jobs, racial tension increased. Lack of housing and health care overstretched social service providers, and overcrowding on buses and public transportation all threatened the segregated social order. But it was the rumors that a black man brutally raped, beat, and stabbed an 18-year-old white telephone operator in Beaumont on June 5, 1943, coupled with reports of a plan among black soldiers to invade the city in search of unprotected white women, that triggered a riot in the Tinderbox town. When a 24-year-old white woman claimed she was attacked by a black man in her Victory Garden a few days later, a mob of more than 2,000 white men, mostly bulky stevedores, rampaged through the black neighborhood, beating pedestrians and burning businesses. In their wake, they left hundreds injured and 3 dead, and destroyed more than 200 buildings. The Beaumont riot was hardly unusual. Racial disturbances in Wilmington, North Carolina in 1898, Atlanta in 1906, Springfield, Illinois in 1908, Omaha, Nebraska, and Washington, D.C. in 1919, Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1921, and Mobile, Alabama in 1943 were all sparked by rumored incidents of rape or manufactured rape epidemics involving black men and white women. Rumors about the mistreatment and rape of black women by white men started plenty of brawls throughout the South, too, but none caused as much violence and bloodshed as the rumor that made Detroit explode in the summer of 1943. 3 days of rioting left 34 people dead, nearly 7 injured, and an estimated $2 million in property damage. During World War II, Detroit, like Beaumont, teetered on the edge of racial cataclysm. 500,000 black and white migrant workers poured into the Motor City, clashing over defense jobs, housing, and access to transportation, public parks, and education. On June 20th, 1943, the temperature soared past 90 degrees, and thousands of Detroit's working-class residents sought relief on the beaches of Belle Isle. Throughout the day, isolated scuffles broke out between black and white picnickers who competed for grills and tables. These minor skirmishes erupted into a full-scale riot after rumors that a white Southerner had thrown a black mother and her baby off the Belle Isle Bridge sent hundreds of black men streaming into the streets to defend and protect black womanhood. The rumor that sparked the Detroit riot was one of many sexual stories detailing the widespread mistreatment of black women during the 1940s. The most oft-repeated tale insisted that white soldiers in the South were mistreating Negro women. One rumor told of a white MP who had beaten the wife of a Negro soldier in a Georgia camp. Another story from Mississippi described the beating of black soldiers while police attacked their wives and girlfriends. There were also plenty of stories circulating about black women who had been arrested and beaten by policemen after protesting mistreatment on buses. As a kind of cultural narrative, rumors of rape and sexualized violence had enormous symbolic power and political potency. Whites used outrageous racial rumors and rape scares to justify strengthening segregation and white supremacy. Meanwhile, the stories of sexual subjugation and racial terror that circulated among African Americans exposed white hypocrisy about interracial sex and spurred demands for equal justice and bodily integrity. Given the tenuous social and political environment into which the Reese Taylor story quickly spread, it was bound to spark similar fears and anxieties, if not violent clashes. Just so that you have an idea, like I said, because she will be on the program this Tuesday about Reese Taylor, because we've kind of, that's earlier in the book. I'm just going to give you a little bit, since this book is mostly about black females being raped by white men, and you really didn't get to hear that. I'm going to go back and just give you a little bit so you know Reese Taylor, because that's kind of one of the central figures. That's the first black female victim that you hear about in this book. And yeah, I'll go ahead and give you a little bit of that story. That'll be our concluding remark. And you all can say, hey, we got to hear a little bit of Professor McGuire's relatively new book. This just came out. This is another one. I'm a little surprised it took this long for someone to mention this book or for me to find it. But I'm glad for the listener who recommended. Thank you, and I'm looking forward to Tuesday. All right, so I'm going to give you, this is Reese Taylor, black female. This is very beginning of the book, chapter 1. Okay, let's see here. Second. Okay. Okay, this is actually not chapter 1. This is the prologue. My bad. Prologue, not chapter 1. Okay. On September 3rd, 1944, the Rock Hill Holiness Church in Abbeville, Alabama, rocked late into the night. It was nearly midnight when the doors of the wooden one-story church swung open, releasing streams of worshipers, all African American, into the moonlight. After a night of singing and praying, Reese Taylor, Fanny Daniel, and Daniel's 18-year-old son, West, stepped out of the country chapel and strolled toward home alongside the peanut plantations that bounded the Abbeville headline highway. Taylor, a slender, copper-colored, and beautiful 24-year-old mother and sharecropper, noticed a rattletrap green Chevrolet pass them at least 3 times. Young white men gawking from its windows. "You reckon what they are up to?" Taylor asked. Taylor and Daniel, a stout 61-year-old, watched the car creep by one last time and roll to a stop a few feet ahead of them. 7 men armed with knives and guns got out of the car and walked toward the women. Herbert Lovett, the oldest of the crew at 24 and a private in the U.S. Army, shouted, "Halt!" When they ignored the order, Lovett leveled his shotgun. West tugged at his mother's sleeve, begging her to stop. "They might shoot you too," he whispered. As the circle of white men closed in, Lovett waved his gun at Taylor. "We're looking for this girl right here. She's the one that cut that white boy in Clopton this evening," Lovett said, adding that the local sheriff, George H. Gamble, had dispatched the group to find the alleged assailant. "You're wrong," Fanny insisted. "She's been to my house all day." The white men crowded closer, nodding their heads in agreement. "Ain't this her?" Lovett asked. "Yep. This is the one," Joe Culpepper said. "I know her by the clothes she got on." "That's her," Luther Lee agreed. "Get her." Lovett lurched toward Reese Taylor and grabbed her arm. Then he turned to West and asked if Taylor was his wife. "No," West replied. "She's Willie Guy Taylor's wife." Undeterred, Lovett extended his hand to the teenager, ordered him to shake it, and promised not to hurt Taylor. "We're going to take her up here and see if Mr. Gamble knows her," Lovett claimed. "If she's not the one, we'll bring her right back." As Lovett spoke, Taylor managed to wrest her arm from his grasp and bolted toward a stand of trees behind a cabin. Come back, Fanny yelled. "They're going to shoot you. Come back." "Stop," Lovett shouted. he cocked the gun at the back of her head. "I'll kill you if you run." Lovett walked Taylor to the car and shoved her into the back seat. 3 men piled in behind her, while 4 others squeezed into the front. The headlights switched off and the car crept away. After a few miles, the green sedan turned off the main highway, rattled down a red clay tractor path into the woods, and stopped in a grove of pecan trees. "Y'all aren't carrying me to Mr. Gamble," Taylor shouted. The men in the back seat clasped her wrist and ordered her to be quiet. Lovett grabbed his gun and waved Taylor and his companions out of the car. "Get them rags off," he barked, pointing the shotgun at her, "or I'll kill you and leave you down here in the woods." Sobbing, Taylor pulled off her clothes. "Please," she cried, "let me go home to my husband and my baby." Lovett spread an old hunting coat on the ground, told his friends to strip down to their socks and undershirt, and ordered Taylor to lie down. Lovett passed his rifle to a friend and took off his pants. Hovering over the young mother, he snarled, "Act just like you do with your husband, or I'll cut your damn throat." Lovett was the first of 6 men to rape Taylor that night. When they finished, someone helped her get dressed, tied a handkerchief over her eyes, and shoved her back into the car. Back on the highway, the men stopped and ordered Taylor out of the car. "Don't move until we get away from here," one of them yelled. Taylor heard the car disappear into the night. She pulled off the blindfold, got her bearings, and began the long walk home. A few days later, a telephone rang at the NAACP branch office in Montgomery, Alabama. E.D. Nixon, the local president, promised to send his best investigator to Abbeville. That investigator would launch a movement that would ultimately change the world. Her name was Rosa Parks. And I will stop there. This is the prologue, and if you tune into the program on Tuesday, I will read more from the book because, as I said, it just has a lot of details. And I think Pam called in and she was asking about family members and non-white people in general who are confused about, why it is incorrect to be in bed sexually involved with any white person at any time. For any reason under racism, white supremacy, when you have a better understanding of context and the term that she uses in this book, the ritualistic rape of black females. And I think C.C. Blackman just ritualistic rape of black people, period. And again, I would just point you to Pulp Fiction, or if you need real life, Louima Abner. Either way, white people and their ritualistic sexual abuse of black people, men, women, children, whole nine, just having a better understanding of that, I think it makes it much easier to say no way on the sex stuff, not now, not today, not tomorrow, not ever. But if you tune in Tuesday, I will read more. She goes into graphic detail, and I think that is the best thing. That is the best thing. As much truth and honesty as we can bear. I think Pam, she uses the term to pull the nasty bedspread off and to not keep white people's secrets. These are their secrets. This makes it sound not so crazy, not so racist, not so irrational, and all the other things that people throw out when you say no sex with white people. This makes it sound crystal clear and logical why black people, non-white people should take that stance worldwide. At any rate, we will be back tomorrow. Pam, co-author, Black Love is a Revolutionary Act. She'll be on the program 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Codified suggestions on how to counter racist man, racist woman, all 9 areas of people activity. Before we wrap up, I know Pam is very much interested in this topic and working on her 3rd book on this matter with the rape and why non-white people should not be in bed with white people. Have any thoughts on this book, Danielle McGuire, Suspected Racist, her book, What I Read? Did you have any thoughts before we wrap up?
You know, I almost couldn't bear to hear it. I mean, I was over here almost crying because I knew what was going to happen. And I would say that I think that's very important information. We have to stop running from it. We have to stop sticking our head in the sand. And I think it's important, that particular subject, because for so long the black female has been the willing whore. And I mean, portrayed as this whore. And I think that it's important for black men to see the victimization of black women and to stop buying into this myth, this white-created myth that black women are whorish. And I think it's important for black women to hear it because we need to have empathy for other black women. So I think it's a super important work. And in the book, you know, we do our best to make interracial sex as unappealing as humanly possible. And like you said, once you're less confused and once you throw the chains off your mind and you start to understand what it has meant symbolically and historically, you won't want to sleep with a white person. It will be a repulsive thing to you. And it will also be what you recognize as a very dangerous thing to do to yourself psychologically. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow's show.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Should be constructive. Stop keeping white people's secrets, and definitely don't keep those secrets from your children. Let them know so that they have a full appreciation for the terrorism that we have experienced at the hands of racist men, racist woman, and, you know, just have that in mind when you go out to deal with white people, any area of people activity. We will be back tomorrow. Our guest, Mr. Blackman, the address again, if you want to get his book, Towards the Destruction of a Nigger Mentality, the address, NubianDirections.com. NubianDirections.com. Always great to hear from him. Pam, she'll be on the broadcast tomorrow. TrojanHorse1.com. The number 1, TrojanHorse1.com. Invest if you think the program is constructive. Support Crease 7, Reckless 2.0, D and Vicus, Tater Pie listening in, Cisco Street Love, Non-Mighty Wig, Justice's blog is justdojustice.blogspot.com. Again, we'll be back on Monday, September 5th, 2011, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Context of White Supremacy. Signing out.